What's going on, everybody? We're here. We're live. Welcome to a brand new Poker Live podcast. My name is Joe Ingram, aka Chicago Joey. Before we get into it, guys, I do want to tell you, yesterday we had on the podcast Phil Galfond. That'll be up on iTunes as well as all these podcasts very shortly. Search Poker Live. Monday, Stefan Sontheimer, Goosecore, the Poker Master himself, the new high roller extraordinaire, poker player extraordinaire, be on the podcast 1 p.m. Eastern time. Next Thursday, W-Coop main event winner, Steven Van Zadelhoff. Man, I've known for a couple of years now, actually. Going to have him on the podcast. Very excited for that one. That's going to be a drinking one, probably below the line. And, of course, if you guys want to check out the Upswing Poker Pot Limit Omaha course with, with that bonus content, the link is below that JNandez put together a couple months back. And then, of course, joining me today on the podcast is a young man. You know what? He's a great man, okay? He's a fellow great man of the great game of Pot Limit Omaha. He's the PLO professor. He's the PLO man. He's a man that I like very, very much, and one of my favorite people to talk poker with, to talk Pot Limit Omaha with, and to take out to dinner at sushi and have him say very weird things at the dinner that I can't repeat on this podcast. Of course, my buddy JNandez is in the house. What's up, JNandez? What's going on, brother?
Yes. Thank you for having me. We have an exciting week behind us and a lot of things to talk about.
I know we do have a lot of things. So you actually told me about some exciting things, but I don't know if we can. Do we get to talk about the exciting things here, or do we have to wait to the exciting things for the You and the Doug podcast on Monday?
You know Doug Polk, right? He wants to keep it exclusive, so we can't say too much. Apart from the PLO University will have a very sick discount and bonus footage by Monday next week, and you definitely want to tune in for Doug Polk's podcast on Monday because we're going to put out some pretty big announcements in terms of what happens on Upswing Poker in terms of Pot Limit Omaha content.
I'm very excited, even though you gave me a little hint of what's to come. So I'm very excited for that. And we'll probably do another podcast. You know what? Me and you talked about doing like a regular show where we do something Wednesday and Saturday. I say we probably keep that Saturday idea going with the Talking Pot Limit Omaha, man.
I'm in.
Fans. So I feel like these ones will be for, these will be for the Pot Limit Omaha players. Yeah. They'll be for the hardcores who love the great game of Pot Limit Omaha. And yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know another guy that loves PLO a little bit more than me. So I feel like you right now, with all the stuff you're doing out there with YouTube and with the course and with just putting out content, coming up with business ideas. You're doing a lot of Instagram now. So, I mean, it seems like you're all in on the businessman nickname I gave you years ago was actually spot on, because now you're turning into the actual businessman.
Well, it's a good cold read. But I get to talk about Pot Limit Omaha every day for a long time because I'm shooting a lot of videos recently. I can't really say exactly for what it is. Of course, it is on Upswing soon, but again on Monday. But of course, if you're willing to have me on, I'm ready to fire PLO strat, PLO philosophy, and anytime for sure.
So obviously PLO After Dark this week, guys. We're going to be talking about PLO After Dark. We might talk more about what these announcements might be from Fernando. I think I know the right questions to ask. And Joseph Rolex says, big discount coming. Are we going to regret paying the full price?
No. I mean, look, there is a discount coming up on Monday for sure. But I mean, what we have in store in terms of announcing for the future, and also for all the guys who are already in the university, we will take care of you guys. So don't worry about that at all. What are you going to play for them on their account or something, Fernando? What could it be? Like, what are you going to play on their account and make them money? What the hell are you doing now, man? I'm confused now. Here's the thing, like the guys who are trusting you as a coach and appreciate the PLO University already, like we are taking care of those guys in the future. And we had long talks with Upswing Poker, with Doc, with Matt, with Ryan, in terms of what we're going to do in the future upcoming, and I think we find a really sweet solution. So nobody's going to be disappointed. And as a side note, here's one thing I announced. Give me one line.
This is like being at a strip club for an hour and not spending any money right now. You're just like dancing on us with your boobs in your face, telling us not to touch you right now. Okay, Fernando, that's fine. We'll wait for Monday. We'll wait for an announcement. Okay. me and you will talk more about it next week as well, and we'll kind of get into it. So, yeah, man, PLO After Dark, Fernando. Obviously, it went down this week. For those of you that missed it, it was on Poker Go, promo code Joey. If you use it, I kind of go, man, I'm such a non-GTO shill. But it went down this week, 300, 600, Pot Limit Omaha, 3 days. Reaction, you know, I talked a little bit with Phil Galfond yesterday about the action on there. The reaction from the people out there. You know, I think maybe, you know, I enjoyed it. I think maybe you enjoyed it. I think other people out there that enjoyed and understand PLO maybe enjoyed it too. But for the mainstream audience, I don't necessarily think it was the best representation of what the great game is all about. And I'm a little disappointed about that. And yeah, that's kind of first start off there. What do you think about this week, Fernando?
I totally agree. So first, I want to say, of course, it's amazing when a big televised show like Poker After Dark is embracing and expanding the great game Pot Limit Omaha. It's not easy to bring it to the audience, but there is a big difference between creating a show from a visual perspective, production perspective, and understanding the audience, understanding also how the game can gain more reach and more exposure and a better understanding. And I think Phil Galfond pointed out in your podcast, having that guest on, I think, would definitely solve a lot of the issues. Someone who can just chime in and let people know why a certain spot is interesting, why people are playing the way they are playing. And then also, as you mentioned, of course, it makes sense to bring in those action players. We saw some really interesting and exciting cash games in Europe over where they're playing shorter, they're playing faster, they're playing more hands, and that's really interesting to watch. Now, we saw more of the finesse play of really, really good players, sort of similar to online poker, you know. And in online poker, if you play 4, 5, 6 tables, then of course the money goes in at one point on any table. But if it's a live game, people take time to make decisions. It's only one table, and players play GTO, so to speak. There's no action player on the table. There's nobody to isolate, to go after for, really. It sort of slows down the action in the game.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's very on point there. It was a very technical game. And, you know, obviously me and you are concerned about, you know, we're concerned about Pot Limit Omaha, kind of the way it looks to people out there. And for many people, they don't really get a chance to see it. You know, they might hear me talk about it constantly on Twitter or on podcasts with people. They might watch some of your videos or watch some of my videos. But a lot of people out there, they don't really know much about the game. And this is the one time they get to really see it. And what they saw, I feel like a lot of people are just like, what is this? You know, what is this? I thought there was action in this game. They're running it twice. They're running it 4 times. And you're right. The dynamic is much different when there is that action player, because like it's so wild how much the game's different. I say if we take out Brandon Adams, we put in the loose Leon in the game, everyone starts to play differently. Everyone's going to attack that action player differently. Everyone's going to attack regulars who are attacking the action player differently. Ranges are going to open up super wide. People start getting in a little bit lighter. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that viewing experience overall is just so much different than what we watch, which you're right, is exactly how an online table plays. And I got to say, I wouldn't want to I don't even want to really watch those games online when those games go down with like these technical players. And those games, for the most part, really don't run that often. I mean, you're never really going to see a high-stakes Pot Limit Omaha game online right now without one of the players in the game, even if they are regular, like they're more action, not like nitty regulars, which is kind of like what we saw during this week, as the players who maybe were weaker fundamentally weren't necessarily action. They were just tighter, and they weren't really making any massive mistakes. They were probably making small mistakes in some spots that, you know, can add up over time, but for the most part aren't really going to hurt them too bad over a short sample size.
Yeah, absolutely. And also from a viewer's perspective, I can just say what we've seen the last year in poker entertainment, so to speak, if you think about YouTube, which is probably the biggest platform people watch poker on these days, and you think about what people actually like, how you expand a certain space. For example, poker hands. We saw that a format of like 10 minutes, 8 minutes, 15 minutes is a great format to show people what poker is, to break it down a little bit. And I just wish, or would wish, that Poker After Dark would have something like that in store. And maybe they do in the future. But if I join, and I am obviously subscribed to PokerGo, I would really wish that I can save a little bit of time and just get access to those action hands right away without having to skip through the whole footage in order to find the big hand. Of course, if the game is crazy, every hand is sort of interesting. But specifically in that format, I felt there were a lot of hands that were sort of like small ballish, you can say. And I wish and maybe they're going to go ahead and step forward in the future to just like cut out some action hands and show people how much fun PLO can be. The money goes in, the action is loose, the bluffs are pretty sick, and the coolers are also a lot sicker than in No Limit Hold'em, specifically if you're new to PLO. So I hope they have something like that in store. And of course, if you guys wanna looking for guest commentary, we have two guys here who can probably do the job.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of, people talk about that on Twitter too, and I kind of talk about that. I think they really do need someone that knows about the great game. Whether like someone like me, someone like you, someone like a Phil Galfond, somebody like someone that talks about PLO, because I think you might be able to bring some players in there, but if they never really talk about PLO or really, I guess like now I wouldn't say coaching, but if they never really break down PLO, like they're going to be able to sort of explain some things, but I don't think they're going to do as great a job as some other players might be able to do out there who are consistently talking about the game, because there's a big difference, as we know, in being great at poker and really sometimes talking about poker or explaining these certain things to the, the noob audience. And I think, when you create videos, you say things like, I know some of the first PLO hands I did, I said some things and I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Like the only people that are really going to understand this or really care about this are people who play all the time. But from a more mainstream audience or new audience, they don't necessarily give a fuck. They don't care. They don't want to know more about this. And, they want to know certain things, but they don't necessarily want to know too much, because then you might overwhelm people. And I think that's certainly what you could use for PLO After Dark, when most people just really don't understand the game. And they might understand it a little bit, but like they don't really get the nuances. They don't get the intricacies that are taking place with strategies or with certain hands. And I do think that for No Limit compared to No Limit, obviously No Limit, like everyone plays No Limit. If you are watching poker, you probably play No Limit Hold'em. So you understand basic things. You understand top pair bet. You understand aces 3-bet. Like you just understand a lot of these things. Whereas in PLO, it's not quite as simple, and most people probably don't even understand why or what the differences are in certain spots.
Yeah, I think we really have to just like open the door and get them in as easy as possible. And having a high production show, like a high value production show like Poker After Dark, is just a great format to get people interested. You have good, well-known people on the table. Mm-hmm. You have a very nice production. So like it's a good spot to just, carve out some of those PLO hands, put them out there for free. And of course, I really appreciate it. I was able to actually do a couple of hands from Poker After Dark, and they get a lot of traffic right away, because people love just this high production, sort of like high stakes, back to the high stakes poker days type of show, type of format, basically, where they can really enjoy some of the highlight hands with some cool people on the table. But yeah, I don't know what's up for the future, but of course, there's always things to improve on. At least they kicked it in with PLO, and hopefully it's going to stick.
Yeah, I saw you did a couple videos on there, and I got to say, when I went through the comments in your videos, I feel better about some comments I might get sometimes, because listen, if they're hating on your fucking videos of you commenting on Pot Limit Omaha hands, they're hating on anything, because you're one of the best right now at just really explaining exactly what's going on in a hand, and you might spend more time studying PLO, talking about PLO, and vocalizing that and coaching that more than maybe anyone in the world right now, which is pretty wild to think about. So if they're going to dislike that and not really enjoy that, then you know what, man, I don't know what to tell those people out there.
People love just bringing out their own opinion, even if they're not an expert. People like to just put it out there. And we have some, quizzes. We just created a format on Instagram where we put up those quiz hands. For example, you have certain holding, should you c-bet or call or defend. And even if I put out the answer, you can say, or my explanation why a certain play is better, and there are some haters in there, or some people who are really, really sure about their opinion. And that's just that's just something to overcome sometimes, at least, if you're trying to make it to the top in poker.
Yeah, that's sort of how it just goes, though, for the most part. Especially in poker, that's what makes poker great, is that you can have differing opinions, and just because you think yours is correct, maybe it's not correct. Maybe a different way is going to be best against different players. So especially in Pot Limit Omaha, there might be this correct way to play, but maybe against this player that might not be the correct way, and then people can think about things differently. So if someone says, hey, JNandez, you're wrong, I'm telling you this, well, maybe that guy's right in some scenarios too. So, and that's the beauty of poker, honestly, is that those players still have a chance to win. And they might not win in the long run with the strategy they have or with the mindset they have, but they're going to be able to win in the short run. and keep coming back and keep enjoying the game. And I think PLO does that especially with, we kind of saw Poker After Dark where, like Chance Corneth, for instance, he comes and plays that last day and gets it in against Phil Galfond, 65-35, runs it twice, loses. Okay, 65-35, we say, okay, got it in good. But for the most part, you think about No Limit, you're getting it in 85-15 sometimes. So 65-35, not necessarily that good. Then he plays that hand against Hollywood Axton. He 3-bets, flops trip tens. Hollywood Axton calls with 3-3-4-4, turns the Colombian full house there when the turn's a 3. And now Chance, we might look at Chance like, Chance, you guys fucking sucks. What the hell? Yeah. But in reality, like he played these 2 big pots, probably should have won the pots. In the long run, he's going to win those pots, but he doesn't. And, maybe his perception of how he played is skewed. Maybe our perception of how he played is now skewed. And I'm sure that happens to a ton of people out there. And the people who are on the wrong side of that, when they win those, they're like, man, I can't believe how good I am at poker. When in reality, you ran really good in some special spots. And, that's what makes poker great to me.
Yeah, the guys who calls it up on the river being behind, like he's always a huge donk and he's always a big loser and he has no idea, no clue about poker. But if you're in that spot, you don't see your opponents holding. I mean, it's just way different, I think a lot of people are super biased towards just seeing one spot, one situation where you didn't play the best or you actually played totally fine, but your opponent happens to have the Colombian full house. So I think there's a lot of work in that direction, but maybe not because, as long as people are sure about their opinion, it's totally cool. That gets the games going, and people like to talk about PLO and keep the word around. So more of that, I would say. I think people love just to see hands and discuss strategy, and the more we can get people to do that, the better it is.
Do you know what the Colombian full house is, Fernando?
I guess it's not the top full house.
Okay, it's the worst full house. Let me tell you what this is named after. This is named after the Medellin cartel. And it's the Medellin cartel. They used to transport drugs to America on boats and on submarines and on planes. And they debatably, the cartels still do that in Colombia. So what happens with the transport is sometimes, bad shit happens in those transports. The people die on them. The plane crashes. The submarine sinks. And this is kind of more of an homage to the 80s and 90s drug cartels more than the new technology. But sometimes, you succeed. You get through. You get your shipment through. Other times, bad things, terrible things happen. And that's the kind of same thing I think about the Colombian full house is that sometimes it's going to be a great hand. You're going to win a pot. You're not going to. But other times, you're going to lose a pretty big pot and get yourself in some really big trouble. And that's why it's called the Colombian full house. So yeah.
It's a boat. It's not the best boat, but it is a boat.
Exactly. I was going to call it, it's like the Colombian boat. The Colombian full house, the Colombian boat. What's the Colombian boat? Well, the Colombian boat, the drugs. So, I don't know, man, whatever.
Have you been watching recently Netflix, or how is this strong drive towards the South American countries, the cartels?
I've been watching a lot of Narcos. Narcos is one of the best shows on Netflix, of course. Where could this possibly have came from? Yes, I mean. So, okay, we think about the play. We think about the week. What was the highlight of the week to you? What moment you think back on? Are you going to say, I remember this from this week?
I mean, I like seeing Durr in there, of course. That really helps. I was also honestly, what I was most interested about is Ike Haxton using very different bet sizings than a lot of other players. I think that's like something that a lot of people don't really care about or pay attention to, because who cares about if someone bets $3,500 if the lines are 300, 600? They want to see the 60, the 100K pots, the 200K pots. But he chose very small bet sizes in many different situations, 3-bet pots, single raise pots. And what I'm thinking is he knows something. So I need to figure out what it is. So that was sort of like my personal highlight, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was kind of my big takeaway too. We obviously got to saw Durr play one day. He didn't show up the other 2 days, for whatever reason. But I don't know what happened with that. But yeah, my kind of highlight was seeing Hollywood Haxton, just see how he approached with the different sizes, as you mentioned. I think he went 1/7 pot one time and a couple 3-bet pots there, and they went full pot sometimes too as well. Full pot with and I think there was one time he got bluff caught where he went full pot. I think it was against Phil Galfond when the board came out. I think backdoor queens. And then, sometimes he's going 2/3 pot. He was really mixing it up quite well. And it was fascinating to watch. And I think that you're very correct. And obviously, we know there's always been that alleged dream machine out there that like Hollywood Haxton and maybe some others possess. So maybe he's been doing some dream machine work out there, Fernando. And I know you're all about the dream machine theory. So maybe that's something for you to kind of dig deep into and figure out what's happening.
Also, the pot size betting was very interesting to see. The spots he chose to do it with, I think made sense in my eyes, of course. So I couldn't sort of like realize why I was doing it, but I wouldn't do it myself. So of course there's some catch-up work to be done on my end, because whenever you see someone who is one of the best players in the world doing something you don't do, you have to go into the lab and then start running the sims to see what's happening over there. As a side note, I also was kind of surprised Jungleman, in my opinion, played surprisingly bad in certain situations, I think. I thought he was more familiar with Pot Limit Omaha, actually, but he had certain... He has like certain tendencies that sort of remind me of him just playing a lot of no limit, because obviously he's a no limit expert, was a no limit expert, now more into 8-game. But I saw some nuances, that there's some certain things that he did that just wasn't really good. One time, for example, he paid off Phil Galfond when he had a set of 7s, and Phil was check raising the nuts straight in a spot where his value bet is like really thin. Yeah, just like some small things that I realized, or that didn't realize ahead of time, in terms of like where the edges are actually at the table. So I do think there are some pretty big off balances in terms of like who played, and there are some players who had big edges in this game. But it wasn't the type of edge where, as a viewer, you would sort of really enjoy the action player who goes wild and has those huge swings. Right. It was just more like nuanced things that I would realize, okay, this guy's way better than the other player, and he's going to have a big edge.
Yeah, I think Jungleman is mainly a heads-up player. I don't think he's played much 6-max, maybe outside of the mixed games and when PLO 6-max is mixed in there. So I'd imagine most of the work he's done, or most of the PLO he's been thinking about, is from a 6-max perspective, which obviously, or I'm sorry, from a heads-up perspective, which is obviously much, much, much different when you're getting in a ring setting in terms of ranges, in terms of just, you know, I think we see Doug sometimes play even 6-max to limit, or when he plays 6-max PLO, and he's obviously great at poker, but at the same time, when you only play heads up and you don't really work at anything 6-max related, or work at those concepts, or think about those concepts or ideas, you know, you can kind of see that in some areas, in some spots. And yeah, I think we saw that with him as well.
Absolutely. I mean, 6-max is just a different game. The ranges are way tighter, the post flop. I mean, specifically in PLO, if there are multiple players on the table, it gets quite nitty, so to speak, in the eyes of a no-limit player in certain situations. One guy can have a big edge in terms of range versus range advantage. It's just how the game sort of works. And you have to knit it up in the right moments. And the guys who don't realize that, they end up paying off pretty bad situations.
What are we going to see you play in future PLO After Dark episodes, JNandez? You going to be able to get in that game, or what, kid? You big time enough?
I think so. I mean, big time enough for Poker Go, that's another question. I have to just get there, basically. But that was basically the sort of like what I took away from this. I went on a call. We had like an upswing meeting right afterwards, yesterday or the day before, I think. And Doug told me, dude, you have to get in that show. Like, you have to just, not for the poker aspect in terms of winning money, but it's just a great format to gain exposure and show people what Pot Limit Omaha is, basically. So I'm going to make an effort to try to get in there. We get YouTube behind me. Everyone puts $1 up, and I'll buy in.
I think we could do that, man. Listen, man, I'm ready to start. I'm ready to try to start the fund on there. If you can get on there, man, that'd be pretty sick.
Kickstarter.
So, wait, would you fold pocket aces though? So if you were in the big blind and the button open and the small blind 3-bet, would you fold pocket aces in the big blind at any circumstances? Would you be folding there?
Yeah, I think if you have 3 aces in your hand, there are actually situations you want to fold.
2 aces, okay, Fernando. For fuck's sakes, 2 aces.
Okay.
2 aces.
Okay. No.
2 aces.
You can't fold 2 aces.
Okay. All right. Good. Because maybe you can have Brandon Adams seat. I don't know, man. Brandon Adams, I think just that last day, man. I don't know. I saw him open King Queen 9-8, 1 suit and a cutoff, and fold to a 3-bet from the button. And you know me, man. Folding the 3-bet it hurts my heart. When I see a fold like that, I mean, not even JNandez would fold that hand. So. And you're the tightest PLO player in the entire world right now. So,
but I mean, we do have some hands, I think, to look a little bit into. I'm not sure how much we're supposed to expose in terms of the show, but on that note, join PokerGo. Use the code Joey in order to get in for cheap. And then you can watch the whole episode, of course, on Poker Go. 3 nights, a lot of hours of action. There's in there. Phil Galfon is in one of the nights or 2 of the nights? I think one of the nights. Phil Galfon's
in 3 of the nights, Fernando. Come on, brush up on your.
Oh, he is actually, yeah. That's actually quite interesting. You know what I'm asking myself? I actually didn't watch the episodes chronologically. I just like tuned in and was trying to find like good hands basically to break down. But do you know where Phil was actually in your podcast? Because he had an interesting background, and I sort of like figured, is this a hotel or is this actually where he's living?
I think Phil Galfon was at where he lives at in Vegas.
Interesting. He had like this super fancy background, and then this station where you can put in your water or whatnot. I think that definitely. I would appreciate a house tour on YouTube. We get Phil Galfon on the vlog.
Okay, I might be able to happen when you're out here in November.
I think for the time you spend in Vegas, you definitely should do one vlog, like one episode, one night out of line with Joey.
Yeah, I think I did that. I did one of those during the upswing party, and I don't think people necessarily liked it because they want to see poker. They don't want to see me getting out of line. I think some people do, but for the most part, I don't think most people really care about out of line, Poppy.
You read too much into the comments.
Yeah, I know all those comments, man. Okay, so I got a couple categories here from this week, okay?
Okay.
I got a couple categories. Favorite player that you enjoyed watching. It sounds like you enjoyed favorite player to watch was Hollywood Haxton.
Let's think about this. I'll go with Ike Haxton.
Okay,
Hollywood Haxton, sorry. Okay, got it.
Hollywood Haxton for the bet sizes for just seeing the way that he played and approached different spots.
He's the boss, you know. He was I think he was by a very large margin the best player.
My favorite player to watch was Jungle Man, of course, Daniel Cates. Jungle Man was talking to himself. He even gave a couple shots. He gave a couple good quotables that I'll be able to live on for the future here. I think that if I want one of these players to come back, and I got to say, like, okay, like who's the one guy that you'd want to see like next PLO After Dark? I think it's got to be Jungle Man at the top of my list, just because I think from the entertainment factor he brings. I don't necessarily know if he does have that propensity. I think I used the right word, to want to gamble it up here. Maybe we just saw the wrong lineup for him wanting to gamble it up. But I think it'd probably be Jungle Man first. I think Josh Aryeh would be the second guy I'd like to see back. He brought some action to the table. He made some loose opens, which I'm just happy to see. Like, okay, go open it up a little bit. You got 4 cards, you're in position. You know what I mean? Let's open it up. I think Josh Aryeh is probably going to be the second for me. And then probably third's going to be probably either Chance or Phil. I think I'd probably go with Chance in terms of the person I want to see on the most, or maybe Phil. I mean, obviously I love watching Phil play, but I think from like an entertainment standpoint, probably either Phil or Chance.
No, entertainment, I would definitely, like if I would be able to put together the lineup, I would not put Ike Haxton in there anymore. I personally learned the most, but obviously I want to see PLO grow, and I want to have a lot of fun watching the episode. So I think I'm going to enjoy other people more on there. I mean, of course, Jungle Man has a unique entertainment factor. I think he's definitely on top there in terms of entertainment.
Right. Okay. So favorite moment of the show. Favorite moment of the show for you. What was the moment that might stand out?
Let's think about this.
For me, it's going to be Tom Dwan and Jungle Man at the same table at the same time. I mean, listen, I don't know how that came to be. I don't know if that was like, Doug said, Doug made a post on something on Twitter. It said, well, of course, Tom didn't show up. You surprised them with Jungle Man at the same table with him. Now, I don't know how true that is. I don't know if it was a surprise. I don't know if this was agreed upon, but you got to admit that a little awkward, okay? For Jungle Man and Tom Dwan to be at the same table. And I don't think there's any. I mean, I don't want to say that. I don't know exactly what the relationship is in terms of them two right now.
It's the first step to the heads-up game, right? They were playing basically the right stakes already at the same table. It's not quite the right game, but I mean, maybe they were there to talk with the Poker After Dark guys about the heads-up game and doing it, live.
All I know is, Fernando, is if you owed me $700,000 and you still haven't finished the fucking challenge with me from years ago, and you're playing in the same game with me, I'm gonna be pretty fucking mad, okay? Like, I'm just gonna be, and I'm sure they played the same game before these past couple years, but like, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm not gonna be happy about that. So that was the moment for me that I'm gonna remember moving forward from this. You know, in terms of the hands from there.
Do you think Tom Dwan should have, if given the opportunity, slow rolled Jungle Man should have slow rolled Tom Dwan?
No.
Was it the servant of a slow roll? No.
Man, I don't know. I don't know about that. I mean, that sounds pretty out of line, but
there is kind of slow rolling, you know, Jungle Man for a couple years now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's not slow roll. I mean, that would be memorable for sure, Fernando. That would have been memorable, I think. So,
but the problem is, like, Dwan wouldn't say anything, you know. If it would be the other way around, if Durr would slow roll Jungle at that table, what will happen?
I think the poker world might turn on him, because I feel like the poker world now really loves him. But that's one thing he could do where people would say, what an asshole. And I don't think he would ever slow roll. I don't think we've ever seen him come close to slow rolling anybody at all, even nit rolling anyone for the most part. So luckily, I don't think that's in Tom's character to do something like that.
Yeah. So, what other categories do you have?
Other categories, we have power rankings, best players for the game. You kind of already went into that. But if you were going to break down the players we saw this week, from your opinion, from the PLO professor's perspective, PPP, it's a good one. PLO professor's perspective. That's a good thing for you. What would you give the rankings for power rankings for best players in that game?
I'd say you go ahead and start so I can remember the names a little bit better.
Okay, so obviously I'm going to go first. I think it's got to be Hollywood Haxton, man. I think we just saw, and it makes sense. He's got the most experience for the most part recently. I think he's been playing a lot. I think he's just got the most from a, let's say from a best in terms of any seat you put him in, well, who might have the highest win rate overall in the long run? I think I'm going to go with Hollywood Haxton first for myself. I think I'm going to go with Phil Galfond for number 2 if I was going to look at that. Who would you 1 and 2? Would your 1-2 be the same?
I think I would go with Ike and then Chance, most likely.
Ooh.
I think he's just playing a lot more the last couple of years than Phil. He has a lot more life experience. And I think he plays a lot of PLO as well. So I would probably go with Chance in second.
Okay. I think for my third, just from what I saw, you know, I mean, we didn't get to see that big of a sample size, unfortunately, of Brian Rask playing or of Chance playing or of.
I mean, Brian Rask was actually, now that you remember it, like he was definitely not in the top 7, 8.
Yeah. So why do you say that? Is it because of that big hand he played with the King Queen 10-7? He called what did he call the 3-bet, I believe, or was it a 3-bet? I think it was a 4-bet actually. He called a 4-bet against aces. The flop was 9-3-4. He had King Queen 10-7, so he had backdoor diamond draw, and then he called like a smaller bet, I believe, and then the turn was the queen, and he tanked for about 5-6 minutes, and then called it off as well. I think it was a little over a pot size, but on the turn there. Are you saying that hand, or just from other hands we saw as well, like that Jack 6-2 when he let out on day 1?
I mean, you can tell on different streets how much someone is struggling with the decision making. And again, like, all this stuff is not personal at all. It's just like, it's a strategical game. It's a complete non-personal judgment. It's just like, you can see when someone is not so used to the strategy they should implement. We saw him defending the small board of Jack 6 deuce, leading out on a board where he had no business leading out to. Then the same hand here that you're just mentioning, you know, just being unsure in multiple spots, sort of similar to Jungle, but I was actually even more surprised kind of with Rast. But yeah, I would put them more at the bottom. Actually would put someone like Brandon Adams even higher than those guys. Yeah,
I thought Brandon, while I didn't think Brandon played poorly at all. You know, I was actually kind of surprised. I thought he played like a fucking nit. And you know, around here, we don't got love for nits, man. I'm not, you know, nit, shout the nits. He folded to a 3-bet. I think he pulled 8. Like, listen, no nits. But I think that, and, you know, I guess we did see him make a couple calls. I think I put something on Twitter that once Brandon calls the turn, when when it looks like he has that middling part of his range, and the other players it's kind of obvious his range is capped towards the middle part of it. It didn't seem like he was going to fold the river facing a big bet. It's a very small sample size. I think we only saw 3 or 4 spots like this, and 2 of the times I think he was right. Another time was that hand when he had 10-eye flush and he lost. But I think that's more of a defensible one. But now I don't know if that necessarily is something to read from that. But yeah, I mean, that's something to kind of know. But I would say
what's interesting about that, by the way, like I think that's a very sharp observation in about Brandon Adams. I think what's really interesting about this is he seems to call in those spots very emotionally on the river. So sort of you can tell by his demeanor and the speed of his call that he doesn't necessarily try to break down his own range and think about how often he should defend or whatnot. And I mean, most people don't do that. But the speed of his call in various situations where he has a clear bluff catcher just shows that he was, I mean, emotionally touched in some way. Like he was either down and was ready to either go broke or double, or he was just fed up with, I'm not going to get bluffed here. I'm just going to call because I'm not going to get bluffed here. And then he just was right also a couple of times. But it seemed to be kind of an emotional nature.
So what do you take away from that? If you see some player who does that and shows this emotional play in a big spot like that, what would be your sort of maybe adjustment, or what would be the way that you're going to perceive that player in the future if you play hands with them?
I think the reason he got emotional, and this is a total guess, is I think he doesn't want to get outplayed because he feels down there that he could be overpowered or not the best player at the table. So he wants to prevent getting outplayed.
Right.
And if I'm on the river, for example, I would probably tank a little bit longer before betting against him so that he gets into his own head. And I would do things that would annoy people who don't want to get outplayed, which is picking fancy bet sizes or betting full pot in situations for value where it feels emotionally more pressuring. Sort of like, hey, I know you're capped. I'm going to bet full pot. Now handle that. I think that is sort of like the message you want to send to a guy like that, and try to get into his head. And the more time you give him on the river before you bet or check to get into his own head, the more likely this is going to level himself or emotions are going to just come up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we used to see a lot of players do, myself included, maybe like 5 years ago at online PLO, 4 years ago. For the most part now, the regulars that are still grinding, man, above like 2-4, they ain't making many more of these emotional river call downs, man. I'm telling you. But you used to see this all the time with players. I mean, listen, myself included. Like I said, this was one of my biggest leagues for many years. Was I would just call, like I would be the one on there. I'm like, fuck this. I am not getting bluffed by this guy who always has top of the range in the river, and they always had top of the range in the river, and never caught him as a bluff. So, like that was my just biggest league, was calling on rivers from No Limit. Just came over to PLO, and once I finally stopped doing that as much, and kind of just eliminated a lot of ways, then I was like, oh, okay, wait, no, okay. So.
I mean, you also have been on this like multi-table grind, which means you probably play against certain players like on 6 or 8 tables at the same time. And it's a lot easier to creep into your mind if you just play hands against someone like every, I don't know, 60 seconds you play a hand against the same guy because you play that many tables with him. Yeah.
Somebody on Twitter actually mentioned about maybe lowering the stakes and increasing the stack sizes. One popular thing, one thing I liked the most suggestion was 100-200 with 100K buy-in. And now we know that 100 big blind deep Pot Limit Omaha is going to play so much different from 300, 400, 500 big blinds deep. There's more of a chance for sick hands, sick pots, sick bluffs. And I think that's what makes, we even got to see what the No Limit Poker After Dark, they're playing super deep. We saw $1 million pot, Fernando, $1 million pot. I mean, like I think it was $1 million pot. I think it was close there, $988, something like that. And you get that with the straddle or with those deep stack sizes. So I think I maybe would like in the future some smaller stakes with some deeper stack sizes where people are actually going to mix it up a little bit, see some more three betting from position specifically. And I think that might be a good thing to consider for future episodes.
I like it. Put in an ante as well on top, but also in defense. I mean, the no limit lineups have been way sweeter than the PLO lineup.
Well, is that true? So the last PLO lineup, I think the last no limit home lineup, I didn't watch too much of it, to be honest with you, because it was all regs. I mean, Doug was in there, but I kind of want to see that. I like seeing it with, Lauren Roberts was in there, Bill Klein was in there, that first. Like, I want to see that dynamic, and obviously Durr was in that one too. I want to see that dynamic more than I want to see personally, 6 Wizards battle. I don't necessarily find that interesting when I'm watching Nolan Hold'em right now, but when we do have that fun player in the mix, and that's the thing I was personally interested in. And Durr was also back too, and they were super deep playing some big pots, and I just found that super entertaining from a viewer standpoint.
I think those 3 episodes on Poker After Dark, the PLO ones that just passed, they are just way different than what actual live PLO looks like. If you think about live PLO, even at those stakes, or let's say slightly below, like 100, 200, 50, 100, or 25, 50, like live PLO doesn't really play that way. It's so much looser. Like people are so much looser, and there's so many multi-way pots and 3 bets and 4 callers, and there's an all-in almost. I mean, every orbit there's certainly an all-in, and that's the way how live PLO plays, and a lot of people love it. Like a lot of recreational players love to play that type of poker, and I think if that could be showcased in a cool way, that would be more interesting. But maybe we have to lower the stakes to get in those people that don't have to buy in for $100,000, but maybe for $20,000 or $40,000, but then have a sweeter game where it's more interesting for people to see what is the fun of PLO. Well, you can play a lot of hands, you can call a lot of 3 bets, you can flop a lot of good hands and then get in trouble. Like that wasn't really showcased with those really strong players.
So if you could put together a PLO lineup, a dream lineup, but something that's realistic, okay, something that we could actually see this happening. So not like the Croc's probably not going to show up, so we can't put the Crocodile in here. Shots of Crocodile, Pot Limit Omaha legend. Who do you think would be seat 1 in that lineup? Who do you think would be the first person you're saying, all right, Doug Polk?
Yeah, I think it would be good for the game. First of all, I mean, we know Doug likes to play a lot of hands in PLO.
Wait, what? Is this this isn't a business-related decision, Fernando. This is you, Pot Limit Omaha. You want to see Doug Polk in seat fucking 1 in the PLO dream lineup?
Yeah. I think he's going to be a lot of fun because he approaches Pot Limit Omaha 6 max like a newer player, like a no-limit player. Like he gets in trouble, he calls like too much pre-flop, and he would also do so because it's like televised. He wants to give action basically. So he brings in a good mood on the table, which is important. Like he is upbeat, that's important, and he also likes to play a lot of hands, and he gets himself into trouble. But then when he does, he likes to talk about it. That's always cool when the guy pots into you and you have like this really disconnected whatever hand, but you flop the piece and you probably have to get in the money. I'm not talking about 300, 600 get Doug Polk in there. I talk about kind of lower stakes, 50, 100, get Doug in there. I mean, I think he would be a good choice for it because he's not a PLO expert, but he likes to give action. He's still a very good poker mind, but it would show how people transition and approach with the no-limit mindset, Pot Limit Omaha.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we kind of saw when Doug's week, when that 6 max, the Poker After Our cash game went on there, it'd be like Doug talking, and then everyone, sometimes people just look at him like they want him to fucking die. Sometimes it's like, hey, can you stop talking, Doug? Yeah. And, I don't like that from, I kind of want to see someone engage with Doug. And you know what, JNandez? I think I might have a good person for seat 2 in that game to maybe engage with Doug, and that's going to be Loose Leon Sekernik. Loose Leon. We put Loose Leon in the mix right there. We got someone for Doug to talk about. And I got to say, I'd enjoy seeing Loose Leon and Doug. And we know Loose Leon loves a great game. Pot Limit Omaha.
I got C3.
Who you got C3?
The hashtag king.
All right, fucking stop it. Come on. What are you talking about?
I don't want to draw too much attention to him because it's going to come out of his cage. But the hashtag king who's 3-bet ISOing Loose Leon over and over again. I want to see that happening. And then Doug Polk chiming in with some comments, That would be a good setup.
Okay, C3. It's not we're not putting hashtag king in C3, okay? I don't care.
Why? Give me a reason, though. Why?
I don't want to see the hashtag king anywhere in my life again, okay? He came, he had his moment, he went. We said this was gonna happen when hashtag king was on Twitter. When we're just grind through this. This is gonna we're gonna be here in 3 years. Hashtag king probably not gonna be here in 3 months. You know what I mean? So we saw that.
Okay.
Okay. Here's my seat 3, and I like this one. Aussie Matt Kirk. In the mix. Player loves Pot Limit Omaha. Player that's regarded as a good Pot Limit Omaha player, I think, or maybe it's No Limit. I'm not actually sure. I mean, I don't know if that can't be true for PLO, but I think Matt Kirk, C3. Next to Leon, we saw him playing this party poker game I've been streaming. He's 3-betting Leon a ton. I think he's going to be going after loose Leon's loose opens, and I think he'll make the game really good. Loose Matt Kirk and C3.
I like it. Let's think about though, like who is on the list even?
Who you got in seed 4, JNandez? Who's in seed 4? Dream Pot Limit Omaha lineup that you want to watch. Seed 4. We got Doug Polk, Loose Leon, Matt Kirk.
Who could be in there? Do you have any names in your list?
I got a couple ideas here, man. Let me throw this one out at you. Victor Blum, Isildur 1.
Is that realistic though?
I think so. I think it's realistic.
It might be realistic.
I think so. We got maybe him, maybe Tom Durduan also as well. Patrick Antonius.
I just want to see Victor Blum, and then to his left the hashtag king. just trash talks Victor. I mean, I want to see that, you know. But yeah, okay. Let's forget that. Okay, Victor Blum is in there. Maybe
you should get hashtag king on a podcast, JNandez. Why don't you get him up?
No, I saw your podcast with him. That was enough.
He might pay you money. He paid me money. Maybe he's going to pay you some money. How much would hashtag
money
for you to have him on a podcast?
Can I decide whether I want to keep the podcast online or can I also take it down if I want to?
It stays online. If you delete it, I post it on my channel.
I mean, there is a number, you know.
For sure.
Yeah, I would say probably like 5K. Probably
okay.
Fine.
5K. All right.
5K for like an hour.
5K. Okay, so hashtag king. So seed 4, we got Isildur Victor Blum.
Okay.
Who else do you have? Seed 5. Who could seed 5 be?
Let me think about the online recs. I would like to see, you know, what are those online recs that we don't usually see, basically. Who is like
a Barry Sweet, not necessarily realistic though. We're not going to get Barry. A few tickets and coming in. I don't think Broom's going to play. Although if we tell them this lineup, they might show up if they say we got a seat here for you.
they could basically like put on some a mask.
Exactly. I think Tom Dwan's got to be in that seat 5. I think Tom Dwan's going to have a very high BPIP. I think that BPIP is going to be debatably through the roof. So I think Tom Dwan, seat 5. We got Doug Polk. We got Loose Leon. We got Aussie Matt Kirk. Isildur 1, and then Tom Dwan in seat 5 right there. I think right there we got a strong 5. I think everyone's watching this 5 right here. And I think it's a realistic 5 we could potentially get together too. Seat 6 though, JNandez. You got to fill that last seat. Who you got?
I would love to see Odd Odson. Odd Odson drinking is always a win for the game.
That's true. It is.
That's just the way it is.
So I'm a little twisted right now. I was thinking Ben86 in that seat 6 because
you want the beef. You want the drama. You want the drama.
Well, I mean, I kind of want Ben there. You know, Ben's going to bring this. He's going to bring this very experienced play to the game. He's going to bring this Dream Machine-like play to the game. I'm curious to see how someone like that. You know, I'd be curious with even Ike Hollywood Axon in that seat too, where like someone who's got a very strong player approaches these psychotic maniacs in front of them playing a super high BPIP. That's how I want to see that personally. How do they approach attacking the fun players? How do they approach attacking these high BPIP players? That's what I want to see. And yeah, there'd be a little drama, man, for sure. You know, actually, I went over to the Aria when one of the Poker Masters was going on, and Doug was in seat 2 and Ben was in seat 3, and I like walked in and I didn't know this was there. I was like, this is just a little, I don't even know like what they both must be thinking. I did get to talk to Ben for a little bit. I miss Ben a lot. Shout out to Ben. I don't know what people out there think about Ben, but Ben's still one of my favorite people in poker, man. I like Ben a lot. I think it's unfortunate what happened and how that whole situation went down. But to see that in person was, I was silent for it. I was like, what the fuck? I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to think, you know, it was something, man.
I guess they were both a little bit embarrassed, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you got it, because you think about everyone around there is like talking about everyone out there stinking it. You know, no one's there like, yeah, it's a little weird. You know what I mean?
I mean, that happens when you put out some shots. You know, if we could do the drama lineup. It's like Doug Polk, and then around him all the guys that have been that he's been taking shots at. Alec Torelli, Ben 86. Who else could be in there?
Daniel Negreanu.
And then the guy who did the French guy, who's the business life guy. What is his name again?
I have no idea who you're talking about right now. A French guy?
The GPL founder. It could be in there as well.
Alex Dreyfus is going to be in there.
Exactly. I already forgot his name. What is the GPL doing? What happened?
It's in China, bro. You got to follow AD on Twitter, man. It's in China. GPL China, GPL India are going on right now.
Who are so the stars are all Chinese people?
I got to be honest with you. I never heard of any of these people. Okay, in GPL China, I don't know how does the China poker community? How are they not in the mainstream poker community? Because I look at these people, I have absolutely no idea who any of these people are, Fernando. And I don't like. Is there like a whole Chinese world we're missing of the poker world or something? Like, I don't know if it's just like where do they play? Like, they don't play? They obviously aren't going to the mainstream tournaments. Why aren't they going to mainstream tournaments? Like, are they just?
And we know where they play, right?
They play in China. Oh, you're right. They do play in China. Correct. They play in Asia. They don't go anywhere else. Okay. So maybe we need to go spend some time over there. What do you think about? What do you think the Pot Limit Omaha scene's like over in China right now, over in Asia?
I don't know, man. I spent some time in Asia, but it's not. The culture is very different.
Culture is different. Not GTO for a 6'6" young Swiss man like yourself, the businessman.
It would be probably GTO. I don't know. The women would be interested, but I don't know. I mean, I play with some Asians. The games are soft and yeah, you don't want to play three-handed. Let's put it that way. Like, heads up is good. Three-handed is you don't want to play three-handed with two Chinese guys.
Why don't you want to play three-handed with two Chinese guys, Fernando?
You know, China is very small, as we all know, so they might just sit by accident in the same room, just by accident, obviously. And then they might share some cards and stuff like that. Possibly.
What scenario, how bad would the players need to be for those two players to be sharing cards against you for you to still be winning in the game?
I think it's almost, I mean, it must be almost impossible, I guess. I mean, not necessarily, but they must be pretty impossible. They don't have to be bad, they just have to be dumb. Like, that's pretty much what it comes down to. They don't have to understand how collusion works.
We should do something where, like, we each play three-handed, and the other two people share cards, and then we see who can have the best or worst win rate on the other one.
I don't know, like in China, or not in China, but in Asia, it's the world of collusion is on a new level. You know, it's like two people collude against those other two people who also collude. It's just like collusion versus collusion. Who colludes better? And everybody knows it, you know. But yeah, they don't have a dream machine for that, I guess. Or maybe they do.
I wonder who would be like the best collusion team together. If there'd be like some GTO. I wonder if like someone's working on a solver for two people working together and sharing 8 cards too. Man, that's kind of fascinating. I don't know. Maybe someone's working at that. I'm not really sure. So let me look what else we got here. PLO After Dark. Who is the one player that you don't want to see on PLO After Dark again that you might have saw this week on the cash games?
I mean, looking at the lineup, I wish nobody would show up again, I guess, because we want to see new players. I mean, think about the 6-handed lineup you put together. Like, it's all players that, apart from Tom Dwan, that have not been there.
So you don't want to see any of them again. Okay. You want them all to be on. All of them out. You don't want to see any of them again.
Let me overthink that. I kind of like Chance's spirit, but apart from that, I mean, no, I don't know. I mean, I want to see people who talk at the table. At least when they're folding, they're at least, you know, engaged. Or what I like about Poker Night in America is that people also Poker in America is a show that is a little bit more true or real in terms of how actual live poker plays. It's very social. There is drinking. It's long. People become really comfortable. A lot of talking, a lot of angling. Like those type of things are what the live games are all about. And I think that gets a little bit lost in Poker After Dark.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's what Poker After Dark's going for. They're going for that. I mean, even back in the day, I feel like the lineups people were talking, and I think they were talking because they all knew each other too. And I think you see with this lineup now they put together this week, you know, how much is Brian Rass hanging out with Hollywood Haxton or Phil Galfond? I don't think much. How much is Ben hanging out with these guys? Well, I know he's not hanging out with these guys very much. You know, how much is even Hollywood Haxton and Phil talking these days? Not very much. So whereas before, back in the day, you'd be putting these 6 players together who all knew each other. They all played a lot of tournaments. They might have all lived in Vegas. Maybe they all you know, had a piece of full tilt or something like that. So that's why you got to see more of these conversations. Whereas obviously we saw it with the specific lineup where, you know, they didn't necessarily know each other. And even when Tom got in there, we did see more conversation because Tom has a relationship with Phil. You know, Tom does have a relationship a little bit with some of the other guys too, and he's played with them. So we got to see a little bit more talking. For the most part, you know, the guys, like they might chat, they might talk once in a while, but they don't necessarily maybe see each other that much as maybe some of these guys did back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also one big facet of live poker is you play with the same guys over and over again. It's your local casino or you're on a trip for 3 weeks and you play against the same guys over and over again. And dynamics evolve, some enemies evolve out of it, or just some friendship. And that really gets this social dynamic going. And I think if you really think about why people start playing poker, social aspects are definitely a big part of it. And if they see it's not all about the cards, it's not all about the math, it's not all about the money, it's about the social aspect of playing a game together, but there's still competition, like that type of vibe, I think is what people should be introduced to.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of bring up a good point about Poker Night in America rather being that social game. And maybe it's because they have a certain couple regulars who drive the action. Like someone like Doug's been driving conversation a lot on there. You know, Sean D plays, he drives the conversation. Maybe it's, you know, Matt Glantz. Matt Glantz does a great job of setting those lineups up. He brings in maybe the recreational players who are willing to talk. Remember last time, the guy that Doug lost that big pot to, you know, the big guy with the muscles, that guy was fun. He's chatting up the entire time. That's a fun guy to have in the game. I want that guy in the game. I want to see him play. I like seeing him interact with other players. So, you know, maybe that's where you bring in the guys who want to chat it up, who like, you know, like a Bill Perkins, he's in that game. He's gonna be talking the entire time. He wants to have a good time. So maybe that's just, you know, some more. We've seen it's possible with Poker in America. They've been able to do this. So, you know, maybe that's the challenge moving forward for Poker After Dark and Poker Go.
They just have to lower the stakes. I mean, they traded the amount of stakes that are being played or the amount of money on the table for a good game, you can say. They wanted to showcase a really high stakes game, which is cool, but that really restricts a lot of players, basically. A lot of players are not going to show up, and the ones that will show up, they play a lot more serious. Again, put Doug into a 25-50 game, he might play different than on a 300-600 game. Demeanor is different, drinking is different, social is different. And with all those guys, it was definitely the same. Like you attract different people, different amount of people or different types of people into a lower stakes game. And I don't really think that people are, if the show is well done and it's 50-100 or 25-50 deep, like that can be also really interesting. It doesn't have to be 300-600.
That's kind of the challenge, you know, Poker Go faces here is then figuring out, you know, how often do they want to do cash games? You know, if they want to do it, you know, they want to do twice a week, twice a month or something like that. And then one's no limit or two no limit. Or they want to do the sit and goes. You know, that's a challenge they sort of face is trying to figure out, you know, how do you break that down? How do you structure it out? You know, people want cash games. What lineups do they want? What players do they want? They want to make some players happy. They want to get, I'm sure they have a list of players that are 100, 200 people deep. And then you got to organize some of these guys. And that's its own little hassle too, because, you know, a lot of these guys, I'm sure, like they don't necessarily want to show up all the time. Like, you know, Tom Guan didn't show up 2 fucking days. So you know what I mean? Like and we might, and honestly, man, maybe if Tom Guan shows up those 2 days, maybe we get something different. But you know,
yeah, they should put together like a really good, fun game, basically. You know, the one that we put together when we were in Vegas, we had the Dream Table.
Listen, now if that game we played would have been streamed, that would have got more views. That would be a ton of views. So the game we played this summer was me, Fernando, Doug Polk, Ryan Fee, my buddy John Beaupre. Shout out to John Beaupre. Crazy Colleen was in the mix out there. I think we had a couple guys from Twitter was in the mix.
Andrew Nemi was in there as well.
What's up?
Andrew Nemi was in there as well.
Andrew Nemi was in there too. I mean, Jesus, can you imagine if that game was streamed? That game right there would have. I don't even know. Like, I feel like everyone would have been watching that game who was like into poker, just would have been watching, and it was fucking entertaining as shit because we were all getting pretty drunk too. So,
but maybe that's one of the solutions. You know, it's. Why don't we think about who are the popular guys in today's day and age, the YouTube guys, the guys who have a lot of audience, instead of the people who play the highest stakes exactly. Bring them together. They all know each other anyway because it's a kind of a small scene. YouTube poker, Twitch poker, like those type of guys, and then just throw up cards in the air.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and by the way, I'm forgetting one person. I do apologize to that person who was watching this because I know there was one more guy in the game to my right there, and I think he was Andrew's friend. So I do want to give him a shout out as well too. But I think there's one more player too. I'm thinking
Oresto was also in there, of course.
Oh, Oresto joined. He joined the mix. He joined the mix a little bit later, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he joined when somebody left. Yeah, I remember kind of what happened when he joined the mix. Shout out to Resto. He's in the chat right now too. One of JNandez's buddies. But I was thinking about that as well. You know, I think someone on Twitter came up is, you know, who are those name players that you show up to watch? Like if you're watching on Poker Go or you're watching on Twitch, who are the poker players that you're going to tune into to watch? And with the exception of maybe a couple guys like a Phil Ivey and Tom Twan and, you know, Daniel Grano maybe. I don't think that list is too long. I do think you mentioned the Twitch streamers, the YouTubers. I think those guys maybe draw those biggest audiences in because you want to see these guys play on a live setting, especially if they're combined with other players that you know. And I think if you put two in there, if you put like a Doug Polk in there, and then you have Andrew Nemi in there, or Doug Polk and, you know, maybe like Lex Velhaus or Jimmy Stapler like in that mix, then you're going to get both of those audiences show up, and then other people who just want to see those players mix. So that could be something to consider. And obviously, Live at the Bike, you know, I do a show for Live at the Bike on Monday nights. Shout out to me at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Live at the Bike's YouTube channel and Twitch channel. They put together these weeks. They have this vlogger week coming up. I think it's Andrew Nemi, Jimmy Stapler, Brad Owen does a lot of YouTube stuff as well. The Trooper, a legendary Trooper guy. I don't really know much about Trooper. Shout out to Trooper though. I know he hustles hard. And
but those are personalities. Like they have an audience, and they are also better. No, that as you say, those are people show up for. They want to see what is the storyline. Can this guy beat this guy? Can he win a pot against him? Is this getting out of line? Like those are the things people show up for.
Yeah, I think
Poker After Dark is more like the classical. Like Poker After Dark is more like the classical high stakes poker remake, but it's a different age. It's a little bit of a different age right now. It's not anymore like it was with Patrick Antonius and Gus Hansen and Sammy Farha. Like those type of poker days are over. It's less old school now. It's more about YouTube. It's less about the stakes and more about the relationship that the audience has with the individual players.
Yeah, I think that we kind of think that because we're so in that world. But then when you kind of go out and you maybe, but actually I think that's really true with the video bloggers. I think the video bloggers now and Doug Polk are like in America, they have the biggest audiences. If you go play at the Flamingo or if you go to the Rio, the people that are most well-known, obviously, the big guys that have been on television for many, many years are still like Phil Hellmuth. He draws a huge audience. Doug Polk draws a huge audience. But even like someone like Andrew Nemi, he's very new to the scene, but he's got a lot of Americans know him. They're very interested in him. They watch his video blogs and stuff like that. And I think that's only going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And now after 5 years of these guys doing this stuff, which is how we saw some of these guys. You know, we saw these guys 2002, 2003, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Always on ESPN with full tilt, so much money put behind them with promoting them. And now when we see some of these other guys do this for 4, 5, 6 years, I mean, you're right. The landscape of poker is going to change a lot because it won't be the top players or the best players playing the highest stakes that are well known. It's going to be people who are being visible, who are creating content, who are being put out there. So I think you're very right. The landscape of poker is shifting, whether it's for the best or for the worst. I'm not sure, but I do think that it'll bring in a lot new players to the game. And while the great players, you know, is still going to be showcased on some level, I don't think it'll be quite what it once was. And maybe that's not the worst thing. I don't really know. I'm not sure what I think about that.
It could be good, I think, just because also back in the days, in order to have fun, playing poker and be considered successful, you had to be a crusher. Like all the guys on TV that were crushers, all the guys who gained attention in poker were winning players, were legends of the game, people who've been in the game for 10, 20, 30 years. These days, you can be popular in poker and have fun. You don't have to be good even. You could just be streaming on Twitch, could be a losing player, a break-even player, have a lot of fun. You could be someone who is just streaming poker and living off his audience and not even beating poker. And that's probably a good message, because it's hard to win at poker, and it's maybe not the best in our best interest to only attract people who want to make money from poker, but also want to have fun with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, I kind of look at it from the standpoint of, you know, when I was back in the day, when I'm grinding up, like my only thing was if I want to get known in poker, even with the crazy prop bets I was doing, I got to get good at poker. I got to get to the highest stakes. I got to get up to that point. So now when I see, like, I mean, if I was back in the day and this is how it was then, man, I would have been fucking really popular because I did the sickest, craziest. I'd be playing for 35 hours straight, sometimes 24 tabling, like day after day. I would be streaming on Twitch, man. I'd be doing like 3-day streams on Twitch trying not to die. I'm like, I would be tuning like, this guy's fucking insane. You know, like that, if that was the reality then as it is now, but obviously it's not. But like, I was always thinking, okay, if I want to get known, if I want to do this, like, this is what I got to do. I got to be good. When I was breaking even, you want to know what people were saying? They weren't being like, man, we like you, bro. It's like, dude, you're fucking ass. You are my PTR comments on Poker Table Ratings was like, dude, you are fucking terrible, dude. You're breaking even. You're tabling for 8 hours a day and you can't win. You're breaking even. You're fucking awful. You piece of shit. That's just what they would, I mean, they'd say things like that on 2+2, and you know, they got some love for the respecting the grind, but they had no respect if you broke even back in the day. No respect.
Yeah.
So
these days are much different.
Now, like, I don't really have much respect for poker players' abilities who are breaking even now. So like, and that comes from before, but it's changing. Now people respect other poker players for other things related to poker, and they're popular poker players. And to me, it's just such a, you know, it's so different than when you came up, because like, man, you looked at everyone else that wasn't winning at poker and you're like, man, that guy's a fucking fish, bro. Like, oh my gosh. And now it's just not like that anymore. Those guys are some of the most popular guys now.
I mean, if you don't have the dream back in the days to move up and make a ton of money, like there was no poker dream in any other direction. These days, you know, people either make a living and tell a story like Andrew Neeme. Like, you won't read below Andrew Neeme's videos on YouTube like, you fucking loser, why are you playing so low? Why don't you play high stakes 300? You don't read that. Like, people respect him for the way he's living his life, basically. And you know, the same is now more and more true for Twitch streamers. I mean, there was a certain period where this thing was like switching over, and some of the Twitch streamers were attacked heavily for not being wing players. But now it sort of calms down, and people understand influencer marketing better, and because that becomes sort of like more important. What kind of audience do you have? How close is the connection? A lot more than how much strategy do you know? How good are you actually at poker? Because the main value you bring to your audience is actually not the strategy. When I talk about specifically all those Twitch streamers, it is the entertaining factor, bringing people together, being on a platform, being visible, building connections and relationships. That those things have a higher value these days for a lot of people than just knowing more things in poker, more strategies.
That's a really good point. It's definitely a really good point. And I think it's only going to keep getting more and more that way. And you're all right, when that first did happen. I mean, I myself included, shout out to me. You know, maybe they were saying some of these people weren't the best player. You know what I mean? You're like, man, why is this guy sponsored? You know, because this guy's awful. Like, he's not good. And, you know, to me, Fernando, it kind of comes down, when I look at, I can't shake it, because I've just, in my poker career, I've seen, okay, you respect the players that work hard at their game. You respect players that work to get better. You respect players that are great at poker. Like, that's what I've always aspired to be like. That's what I've always wanted to be like. That's what I've worked hard in poker to be, to try to get that respect and try to get to that point. And then when you see players come in and they're not really, maybe they work hard for 3 months and they stop working, or they just don't fucking work at their game anymore. They're just like, whatever. Okay, got a little audience. I'm just gonna play every day. I'm literally not gonna try to get better in any sort of way at all. You know, when you see that, like, it still makes me a little bit feel some type of way, just because it's so different than how it was before. And obviously things evolve, things change, the system changes, whatever it is what it is. So, but to me, man, when I see people like that just like stop trying to get better at poker and they're like, whatever, I'm gonna do all this other stuff. To me, it's just like, man, I don't know, man. It'll take me maybe another year. I feel differently about it. It's
a different world, that's for sure.
Very different world, my friend. So, I have one hand written down for PLO After Dark, but Arresto, he cut off videos of these hands. And like I said, I don't think I can show the videos, the full videos. I don't think we can show them on YouTube. So we do kind of need to put these hands that we have from Poker After Dark. We can talk about a couple though, and maybe we can just sort of like, talk about what happened in the hand rather than show the hand, because it's against.
Show like a frame or something, like a frame.
Yeah, I think we can actually do a frame. Let me try to set this up here and do a frame. So I mean, the one hand that was posted on PokerGo on Twitter, the Poker Central Twitter, was that hand between Ben Lamb and between Phil Galfond. Or I'm sorry, Ben Lamb. Yeah, Ben Lamb and Phil Galfond. So I think it was Durr raised the button. Ben Lamb called the small blind with King, Queen, Jack 8. King, Queen of Hearts, and then Phil Galfond defended the big blind with 10-6, 5-4 with one suit. And then flop came down Queen 4-4 with two hearts, or sorry, Queen 4-4 rainbow, and then check. Tom Dwan c-bet the button. I think it was to 3,000. Phil Galfond. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm fucking this hand up now. Pressure's on me. I remember I
could take a frame out of mine. Actually, I uploaded this hand on my YouTube channel.
All right, I talked about the hand in my last video. People are like, show the fucking hand, Joey. Stop looking around. Show the hand. I'm like, guys, for fuck's sake, calm down, okay? So I'm getting these like PTSD in my mind. Like, I feel them coming in. They're hitting me right now. I'm telling you, the comments.
Attention spam is not that big. I'm going to send you a frame of the pre-flop hand and the flop texture.
Okay, the comments that it's in my mind. Well, you can share your screen on your end and just share your screen up, and then we'll go to that. We'll show that on here.
So we'll look how that works. I don't want to expose.
Please do not expose the secrets.
Yeah, I'm going to show you a frame. I think I'm afraid.
And expose the secrets. Guys, we're currently live right now podcasting with JNandez on my YouTube channel. Look at him, businessman. Talk Ben Fernando. Show him your beautiful face here, kid.
What's up, guys? Welcome.
Look at him. Okay, that's enough. All right, we got the hand.
I'll have it in a second.
Yeah, don't show the porn that you have over there, please.
I'm gonna show you some poker porn.
Okay. Do you have the poker porn up?
In a sec.
Okay.
I'm gonna send you the frame. I think that's a little bit more. I think I'm allowed to do that. I'm already posted this picture, so I'm gonna put it here into the live chat.
Okay.
Now, let me just make sure that it's actually the link.
Okay.
Okay.
Fernando's gonna be showing me the link right now. Okay.
Posting a link.
Posting a link. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh, beautiful. Okay. This is beautiful. Baby, let's party. Okay, let's show this. Hold on a second.
That's okay to show that.
I could show that, yeah. All right. Okay, here we go. All right. So here's the hand here. So you guys see the hands here. Tom Dwan, c-bet the button. Ben Lamb check call with that top pair with the queen, and then Phil Galfond has a decision with 10-6, 5-4. He's got those weak trips with some weak kickers, and he decides to check raise to 12,000 here. Now, Fernando, what do you think about the check raise here in Phil's spot, or should he just check call? I think they are effectively, he's about 80K deep with Durr, and then 120,000 deep with Ben Lamb effective.
So I'm going to use a word that people get nervous about, but
please do not say the word sim or solver.
No.
Okay.
From a GTO perspective, and I know you like to use that word, so it's okay. This is not going to be a raise in the flop ever, like 0%. It's not even a mixed strategy or whatever. But you can imagine that Dwan is probably not c-betting a GTO frequency. Like, he's obviously a little bit out of line here, c-betting this hand. And I'm not saying this is a terrible c-bet or this should never be in his range. I'm just saying that it's pretty unlikely we see a snapshot of a hand he decided to c-bet and he would just c-bet exactly that holding. It's more likely he would be c-betting a bunch of hands similar to this one, like too many, so to speak. And maybe Phil Galfond picks up on that. And now it's where it becomes interesting. So the problem with calling on the one hand is that your hand is very transparent, which means how can you have a bluff if you call here after a bet and a call? you almost can't. It would be almost spewy to just call here with total air. So the moment he calls, he's removing bluffs out of his range. So the only way you can keep bluffs in his range is by raising. And I think that's basically what Phil's thinking is, well, if I call, my hand is face up, it's really hard to get value because I'm not bluffing. But if I raise, someone can level himself into the situation or come over the top on the flop or the turn or bluff the river, which is what happened here. And then I can call down, which is what not happen here. But so here is the point. He wants to raise in order to get action, I would say. And he wants to represent that he's also bluffing in this situation. So that's why he chooses to raise. Like, this hand is a non-standard hand to raise because it's not very strong. But I think that's what goes through his mind. He wants to have bluffs in his range, and he can't, quote unquote, have it if he just calls.
But so do you agree with that in this spot? I mean, I think that that might make sense in terms of what he's thinking. But do you think that this specific situation? Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about what happens here.
But the times it becomes an exploitive raise is probably the times you should also then call down because you made that exploitive raise.
Which is kind of not what happened. And it kind of makes sense. So, I think if we explain to people out there, what happens when we check raise here, like I think most people see that we have trips. Okay, why don't we check raise trips? And kind of the thing that happens with trips is, okay, when Ben Lamb calls from the small blind here and then check calls, he's basically saying he either has kings, aces, a 4, or a queen. For the most part, I doubt he's going to have too many backdoor draws with no pair with Phil behind him. So, and Phil's calling pretty much 100% of his range from the big blind here. So he's going to have, some 4s mixed in there. So Ben Lamb, when he check calls here, his range, like we said, is sort of those hands. And he might check raise some pocket queens, some queen 4s if he has those. And he probably raises even some 4s, ace 4, king 4, maybe something like that. Ben might as well too. So when Ben just check calls here, now his hand is relatively face up. And I think when we think about Phil check raising here, does he get value from worse 4s? And what do you think about that?
No. So the way you should create your check raising range here for value is you should think about your sidecars. Sidecars are very, very important when it comes to Pot Limit Omaha. Right. And one of the reasons for that is because you have so many sidecards, which means your hands can be very diversified. Your 4x here can be very different. They can have ace king in there, which can improve against the queen 4. They can have backdoor flush draws, backdoor straight draws, which can improve to a straight, or which can turn an open-ender with trips, which has more equity against a hand like ace 4 than the hand that Phil is holding here. So I would say that you want to check raise your best 4s, which is probably queen 4, and then maybe ace king 4, for example. That is a fine hand to check raise. Now, one of the questions here was, what kind of hand do you want to check raise? Bluff? Yeah, I would say it's kind of close between choosing the weakest queens you have. A queen is a really good hand to check raise, or a hand like 5-6 ace that is blocking ace and has backdoor flush draws, backdoor straight draws. But I would actually choose the queen over the ace 5-4, because if you think about your opponent's bet calling range, so the hands he wants to bet and then call, and you ignore the 4 because the 4 is anyway, like you're not going to bluff him over 4 on the flop, then a queen is a very essential blocker to go ahead and bluff catch here, because you're blocking the main value range, which is queen 4 and queen. So holding a queen yourself is reducing the amount of the time your opponent will be able to continue against your raise. And of course, some of the queens are going to be strong enough to call, but then some of them are not. And I think those are the ones that are preferably to raise, specifically if you don't have an ace or a king, because an ace and a king is going to increase the frequency your opponents have aces and kings, and those hands might fold on the flop or on future streets.
All right, since everybody out there, I'm sure they understood that very completely. But I think if you're still newer to PLO, you probably it's not the worst idea just to not be raising here at all. Okay, just with your bluffs. Don't worry about check raise bluffing this spot and Phil's spot. If you're still newer to PLO, let's worry about that one down the road. But if you are someone that's a little bit more advanced and understand the game, and you're playing against better players, then you might want to start thinking about working in those type of hands, your check raise bluffs. But I think if you're a beginner player to Pot Limit Omaha, the great game, let's worry about trying to bluff some little bit easier spots to understand for the most part.
Bluffing is always complicated on paired boards in terms of choosing the right combos, because the answer is it's always a mix between different types of hands you can have, a mix between backdoor straight draws and top pair hands. But more important here, and the big takeaway from this hand is you don't raise hands on the flop that have little potential to improve against the current nuts as a default, and this is one of the examples.
So, okay, so what we'll call the hand as it from played here. So Phil Galfond does check raise. He makes it 12,000. Tom Dwan folds, and then Ben has a decision. And now, when you're in Ben's spot, you've got the king, queen, jack, 8. Phil check raises. What are you thinking about when you're in Ben's spot here? So you're still pretty deep, 200 big blinds deep to start the hand.
The first thing I would think about is folding, and the reason is because it's a mixture of you're actually not blocking that many hands Phil can have. Like, you're not blocking queen 4 that much, and Phil, as we can see, can check raise other hands as well. And then also just the realizability factor, which means even if you have the best hand, like, how many turns can you realistically call with this specific holding? And I would say not many, unless you really want to go into the hero calling section. But even if you call the turn, I mean, how many rivers are you willing to call? So I would keep those things in mind. And then just like that combined with how much equity do you have against the 4? And the answer is like almost non-existent. I'd say just go ahead and fold here for the most part. Yeah. And then call better hands, obviously a 4, and then potentially some pairs in your hand that can actually boat up in a pretty deceptive way. King,
yeah, I think some people might think if you're folding, okay, so if you're folding the king, queen, jack, 8 here, it's like, well, then maybe you could be easily exploitable. Phil can just start check raising a ton from the big blind. And I think that, for the most part, when sure that your opponent is capable of doing that, and maybe is doing that at an out-of-line frequency, then you start thinking about, okay, maybe I call the flop here with that hand. But for the most part, you just kind of let it fold sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's kind of the unfortunate part. You just gotta let your hand go. You don't want to be putting in, you don't want to be making these very, like, I guess you don't want to be making these strong assumptions about what a player is doing in a spot where you're going to lose a ton of fucking money when you could just fold it and just, move on to the next hand and kind of just, avoid that situation altogether.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. There's this stigma that people have about overfolding and being bluffed. And in this situation, you have to think about the burden of defense here. So both players, Ben Lamb and Tom Dwan, they should defend against the raise of a certain frequency, because otherwise the Galfond can go down a line and start raising and whatnot. So if you think about which player has to defend more, it would be Tom Dwan. And why is that the case? Well, the reason is because Tom opened the button. He's going to have more 4x than the small blind. And also Tom is going to have more aces and kings. He's also going to have more queens than Ben Lamb, who just called the flop and also just called pre-flop. So what this means is, if you're in Ben Lamb's shoes and Galfond raises the flop and then Tom Dwan doesn't defend, like, you don't even have to defend very often here, because the burden of defense is mainly on the button in this situation. So let's just break this down. Let's say Galfond raises a certain amount where it has to work 66% of the time. Then both players will have to defend in combination 66% of the time. So let's say Tom Dwan takes 45% of the responsibility. Then there's actually not like that much more that Ben Lamb, like, he has to basically continue here 20% of the time. This is the mathematical breakdown. Maybe it's a little bit too in depth, but yeah, this is what's happening. Don't feel bad about folding bad hands, specifically if it's early in the hand, because you still have to go to the turn and the river and call off.
This is why me and JNandez could never, by the way, we could never do a PLO like hand review video, because we would talk about a fucking hand for 3 hours, me and him. And that's what I try telling people in some of my videos. I'm like, I could talk about this hand for an hour. Like, every hand that's interesting could be talked about for hours. Which is incredible. But yeah, like that's kind of this is how I feel about a specific hand like this. So okay, so hand goes down as played. Ben Lamb decides to check call, and I think Ben Lamb is kind of thinking about, well, I do have some backdoors. He's got the backdoor straight draw. He's got that backdoor hard draw as well too. If the turn does go check. So when he does check call, his hand looks like a 4. He looks like he has a 4. So if Phil Galfond's bluffing, he might check back the turn, and then I can either bluff the river, because I do have the king, the queen, and the jack in my hand. So I do block some of those ace, that king 4 that Phil might have check raising there. And I'm going to get credit if I potentially do want to turn my hand to a bluff. So I can understand. I think that's probably where he's coming from. And also maybe he thinks that maybe he can get to showdown sometimes as well too. And but I don't think that's what he's thinking because he does bet the river. So the turn comes down. It's the 3 of hearts. I wrote this down. Yeah, the turn's a 3 of hearts. So it does give Ben that backdoor straight draw. And then Ben checks, and then Phil decides to check back. So what do you think about Phil's decision there to check back?
I think it's fine. So the reason he was raising the flop again is mainly because he wants to keep bluffs in his range. So now going to the turn, he would be betting 2 merged. So like his bet has a lot less value on the turn because his opponent is going to tighten down his defending range. So checking the turn in a traditional easy sense, we can say he is basically pot controlling. Here's, by the way, a picture about the river situation then. I just posted it in the chat.
Thank you, Puppy. Okay, so river comes down here, and we have the river comes down, and it's the 3 of diamonds. So backdoor flush does not get there. Queen, 4, 4, 3, no flush possible. And now Ben has a decision, pots about 33,000, I believe. And Ben decides to go ahead and make a pretty large wager. He bets 28,000.
Yeah, so the 28 is already contributed to the size of the pot. So I think the size of the pot was, what was that? It was like almost a pot size bet.
Yeah, it was a little less than pot. Yeah, that's what I have written down here.
32,000 in the middle, 28,000 is the bet. The bet size, I think, is a little bit large because Ben Lamb is sort of like saying now, well, I have queens full or ace 4. That's why I'm betting so big, because I actually beat some of your 4s. I'm not sure if that's actually the story he's trying to tell here. It's more, so I think he's more saying, well, I have a variety of value hands. For example, I have a 4 or I have queens full. But here's the point. When you bet that big, you're implying that you have a lot of bluffs in your range, because when you bet that big, it means for your opponent that he needs to be right pretty often, which means the other side has to bluff pretty often. And I'm not sure if Ben Lamb can actually bluff here that often. Now, apparently he's bluffing here, I understand. But I'm not sure if this sizing is approved. But it maybe was the reason why Galfond actually folded. So maybe it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's just trying to say I have queens full here. Or I have that queen 4. I think he's just saying it looks like Phil does have a 4. I want Phil to fold a 4. How can I make him fold a 4? I'm going to make a large wager here. I think that's exactly. I want to potentially maximize my fold equity. And maybe I don't want to choose the pot. Maybe there's some sort of psychology, maybe because I know Ben plays a lot live. Maybe there's some sort of psychology in choosing a little bit less than pot here. It looks more value heavy. It looks like you're more wanting that call. So I think that's probably what was going through his mind here from just in real time.
And seeing that big bet, I would actually be more inclined to call in Phil Galfond's shoes, because now Ben is really saying, I have queens full, which I didn't 3-bet before the flop. I didn't 3-bet queen before the flop. And then I also didn't raise the flop c-bet and didn't raise the flop raise as well. I mean, which is possible, but is he really doing this that often? Because he has to be bluffing here almost a third of the time. And I think that's a little bit of a stretch. But I mean, it's a tough spot, and that's what happens when you put yourself into those situations where you raise merged hands. And I'm not saying at all that Phil Galfond made a mistake by raising the flop. I'm just saying it was exploitative nature, and this time it sort of like bit him in the ass.
So I kind of want to go back and kind of something I was thinking about this hand. Let me pull the hand back up actually here. Let me go share the screen real quick. So I want to go back to the flop decision, and we're thinking about some of the 4s that we do want to check raise. So he's got the 5, 6, 10 as the as the connectors here, and I was kind of thinking more about it like okay, so when we do check call here, what's likely going to happen? Well, most likely the turn is going to go check, check, check. So do we have good cards to have here when, I think we have the 10, but I think I kind of understand why he might want to check raise this hand with only having the 10 in his hand, because often the turn is going to come, let's say the turn comes ace, king, jack, 9. Yeah, I guess, yeah. Yeah, because oftentimes we're going to see 2 more cards. So maybe he wants to potentially just protect against seeing 2 cards here, and he doesn't really have. Yeah, but I guess the 5, 6 does gives him it does block a lot of those backdoor straights potentially that could get there too. So
He can also lead the turn card. I mean, if the turn card is not an ace or a king, I think there's a pretty good reason for Gaffon to lead something like 30%, 40% of the pot.
Yeah, but I wonder how often he would do that. But yeah, I think that's something if you're going to mix that into your game plan.
Yeah, I think he would never do that, by the way. I don't think he plays that way. I'm just saying it makes a ton of sense that you lead the turn card because you have the strongest range when it goes bet, call, call. On the flop, you don't have the most polarized range of all the pre-players, but you definitely have the most equity, which is okay to just like fire a bet on a dynamic turn card for like a third of the pot.
Yeah, but I mean, you kind of illustrate a good point. Is this is what sometimes happens? You know, I think that's what players think is that they find, you know, they make a defense, they flop trips, and they're like, okay, got to start building the pot. And they check raise, they get called, they're like, fuck, now what? You know, now what do I do? Oh, he probably a better for. Okay, unless I make a false, I'm gonna check. And maybe, you know, that's not necessarily the worst plan. If he hits a 5, hits a 6, hits a 10 on the turn, makes the full house, then he can decide to make another bet and then reevaluate his decision. But I think sometimes, you know, you probably want to think about avoiding spots like that where you check raise those a little bit weaker trips and then you get called and then you're like, okay, I have no idea what to do here.
Yeah, I think that's something that happened here, and it will not happen that often to Galfon, but I think it's something that will happen to a lot of other, specifically more unexperienced PLO players, that they get themselves into those spots that are very weird in their minds. Because they have a good hand, but they're also at the same time bluff catching, and they don't know what to do basically, and you know, clicking buttons.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's something as you're thinking about, you know, playing more Pot Limit Omaha, you want to try to avoid getting in those spots, and you know that might happen when you sometimes people, you might check call the fucking idiot set, aka bottom set, and sometimes you might check raise the bottom set on a very dynamic board, and then when that turn comes down, a number of different turn cards, you're gonna have absolutely no idea what to do. And you're probably going to get, you know, made to be fold the best hand sometimes. And that's why sometimes it's best to just check call with certain sets, depending on what your side cards are, because you want to avoid those big spots out of position on the turn and the river where you're just like, I don't know what to do. So that's why you don't always want to raise these hands you perceive as super strong that aren't always super strong.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens quite a bit. I can send you also a second screenshot here, just because I mean, depends a little bit on where you want to go with this. But
baby, give me the screenshot, Poppy. Okay. Give me the screenshot. You know,
is this the official hack around the Poker Go?
Well, they technically we're allowed to do that. We can show the screen. We can show the screen. Okay. We can do that.
They just send you a message, is okay, or something like that?
No. We can show the screen.
Okay. Shout to the screen. Here is another hand that might be interesting, which is.
Oh baby, what do we got here?
Let's see what happens.
Give it to
Brandon Adams here against Cates.
Let me see. Hold on a second here. Which one's this one? Is this correct? Brandon, is this hand correct?
Oh yeah, I think so. So Adams 3 bets against Cates.
He min 3-bet?
Yeah. He ISO 3 bets Cates here from imposition with the Jack 8, 7, 7 double suited. What do you think about this play in general here? First of all, what do you think about the hand? And what do you think about the sizing?
What is, do we know the stack sizes here?
Let me just glance over. The stack sizes in play are Cates has 58,000 after calling the 4,200. So he has like 100 big blinds.
I mean, I don't think I've ever done this, so I'm not. It does not seem like maybe he misclicked. Are we sure he didn't misclick here? Do we know this was like he actually fucked up here?
Oh, it's just one of the misclicks from. I mean, Adams is not 3-betting that much, but I don't think it's a misclick. Maybe it's a misclick. But some people do that. Some people 3-bet that small just to like force out other suits or other players, want to play heads up. Want to see if his opponent has aces. I see this type of 3-bet sometimes from players.
Wow. Okay. You obviously play more live than me. I mean, I don't see this online ever. I don't know, man. I mean, the only time you really might do this is if you're trying to isolate against a really fun player and you want the blinds to fold.
Oh, now we're getting to the analysis. So you're saying Brandon Adams.
Oh, wait, you're telling me you think that Brandon Adams thinks that Jungle Man's fucking that weak of a player here where. So they were.
Let's assume it's not a misclick. I would say what he thinks is this is a good hand to play heads up, but a bad hand to play multi-way. And also this is a bad hand to play a huge pot before the flop, because Brandon Adams doesn't want to play a huge pot before the flop. At this point, he has 107,000. Like, he's doing fine. He's recouping. This is on day 3 of Poker After Dark. So he wants to play this hand heads up, but he doesn't want to play a huge pot.
I mean, okay, let's see. Can we see the rest of the hand? What happens? Is that all we got?
No, here's the turn card.
Okay. All right, give me the turn, Poppy. Give it to me, baby.
And here's the flop, of course. So flop is 9-6, 3-2 hearts, and Kate's checks. And Adams in position goes ahead and checks behind with the open-ended straight draw, 7-8 on the 9-6-3 board. He also has backdoor spades, so backdoor flush draw. And the question is, what do you think about this?
I mean, listen, are we going to try? So really try? Are we trying to figure out what he's thinking about it, or are we trying to figure? I mean, like, you can't like break this down from a normal standpoint. It's just such a weird hand where he min 3 bets there. I think he's thinking that, okay, I don't want to get check raised here. I have a hand that, I just want to check back. I want to try to hit my straight. I could potentially bluff some turns and bluff some rivers as well too. And if I get check raised here, I'm gonna have to fold. And Jungle Man might have some hands in his range here where he does have. We don't block any hearts. We don't have a 9. So maybe Jungle Man, if he might just, have a stack size where he only starts off 100 big blinds. So he might just check pot some of those 9s or some of those high flush draws as well. And then he's going to have to fold his hand. So he just wants to see a turn, Poppy.
What do you think about the in-position players, so Brandon in this spot, betting 3,200?
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't really have much experience in terms of this 1/3 pot sizing, which I know, Poppy, that you do. This is right up your alley, my friend. I am not a big 3rd pot size bettor in my current strategy right now.
Maybe I could bet a 3rd pot here.
Ike might bet a 3rd. Ike wouldn't make it 4,200 pre-flop, though, as well.
People probably bet, I mean, maybe, who knows, like what is all in his arsenal.
That's true.
Maybe he never bet small.
What do you think between, okay, so let's say you're Brandon Adams, and like you kind of have, why would you decide to bet 32 rather than checking back here for the reasons I stated to you?
Yeah, so if you look at the board 9-6-3, what is obvious about this board is that the current nuts will change very often from the flop to the turn to the river. So this is a board that has a lot of texture shifts. Whenever that is the case, this is a pretty big disadvantage for the out-of-position player because he has to go through those texture shifts first. He has to look at a heart on the turn and decide, do I want to lead here or check to my opponent? And then the in-position player can really make this decision because the in-position player is the only player who can take a free card. So my message is draw-heavy boards are great for in-position and bad for out-of-position. Now, by betting 3,200, your opponent cannot make this SPR, stack to pot ratio, that much smaller. He can't really go all in. So even if you were to check raise, your opponent can still call, and then you have to take those texture shifts yourself out of position. And what that means is, if you bet 3,200, you are exposing your opponent to take either a massive decision and just go with his hand, which is a pretty good commitment or a pretty big commitment in comparison to the 3,200, or you make him call and then exposing himself to being weak and then taking advantage of, or you get him to fold a hand like that one. If you look at Kate's hand, Kate has 32% equity against Brandon's hand, but can he call 3,200 with his hand? And I would say probably not. So you basically gain advantage from multiple angles. You don't get check raised that big. You keep the positional advantage because your opponent cannot go all in. You don't risk much money betting. You can figure out what your opponent has. You can play against your opponent's capped range on the turn in case he just calls. So like there are a lot of advantages betting that small.
Yeah, I think I think that sounds really great. And I think the problem comes is that when you're the player betting 3,200, you just have no idea what you should be doing on the turn and if he check raises too. And I think that's a big thing that people just try to avoid. And maybe that's something that maybe, Brandon might want to avoid here is if he does bet that size. If you don't know how to react when your opponent does check raise you and you don't know why you're reacting that way, and obviously the way that you learn is you sort of get in spots like that, I think you might be a reason for checking back here instead of betting 3,200.
I agree. But here's the thing. The other player also doesn't know what to do. I mean, he has the same problems, but the other player's out of position. And also, if you bet 3,200 here with a lot of different hands in your range, like your opponent has way less information about your range than you have against his range once you react. Because if you're out of position here in Kate's shoes and you have 9-6, for example, like you have to raise. You have to just try to protect your equity. Because if you don't raise, maybe your opponent takes a free card in the turn, and then you give away 2 free cards for a price of 3,200. That's a pretty big problem in PLO. So you basically don't tell your opponent much about your range and how strong your hand is, but you sort of expose him to have to
expose the secrets.
Yeah, no, you sort of like put him into a spot where he has to play a little bit more transparent, like the out of position player.
So then what do we do in terms of checking back here then? So if it sounds like you're advocating a near 100% c-bet strategy here with
no, not necessarily, but I would be happy to check back hands that have more advantages of seeing turn cards and need less protection. So let's say Adams has a hand like ace, king, queen, jack with ace, king of spades. That makes a lot more sense to check back, because when you get check raised, you actually lose some equity. You really benefit from the free cards in the first place, and you also don't need much protection. Where Adam's hands here, I mean, he needs to protect against the king or an ace or a queen. He needs to protect against a bunch of hands, basically. So he gains a lot more advantages of betting that hand and then checking back total air balls that have better turn cards to hit for free.
JNandez, it excites me so much listening to you talk about the great game of Pot Limit Omaha, man. I'm happy you've been spending so much time in the lab, my friend.
Upswingpoker.com, guys, check it out.
I'm happy, man. I love Lab Fernando, man. He's okay. Let's go. Give me the turn, Poppy. Give me the turn. Where we got? Give me the screenshot.
I don't even know what the turn is. That's not what the turn is. Oh, the turn is nice.
Oh, look, I'm only betting 33% pot for next week. Till next Saturday. Give me the turn. What could the turn be? It's nice. Don't tell me what the turn is. The turn is a 10, isn't it? Your turn is a 10.
No. Okay, let's have a look. This is the turn card.
Screenshot.
But
give me a screenshot. I need the screenshot in my life.
Look at jungle.
Uh-oh. Let me see the turns. Loaded. Oh, the 5. Oh, jungle. Okay, so 5 of hearts comes here. I remember this one now. And then jungle decides to lead out on the 5 of hearts.
So what do you think would jungle's play here?
I mean, I guess I kind of understand where he's coming from. He's got the 8 in his hand. He blocks 7, 8. He does have the 1 heart. He probably thinks that Brandon is going to be c-betting most of his high flush draws on the flop. So he thinks that he can potentially bet 2 straights if Brandon does call the turn, and then he can potentially bluff him out the river because his range is capped. And it kind of goes back to something I said earlier, where when Brandon looks like he has the middling part of his range, where when he calls here, he's going to look like he has a jack high flush or a queen high flush, and those are probably the hands that Jungle Man thinks that Brandon's going to be checking back here. So he thinks, okay, I'm going to make that hand fold by the river. So I get where he's coming from, but I probably would have chosen a different hand to have with at least 1 high heart blocker. But like I said, I think that he's just saying, okay, this guy's range is capped. I'm just going to make him fold 2 straights, and it doesn't necessarily matter what my cards are.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you're stating, a lot of players, the way they play, actually, they're not going to have that many great cards on that, great hands on that turn card when they check behind on the button.
You're not. It doesn't sound like you're going to have too many great cards here on this turn as well, Poppy.
Well, that is true, but the hands I have on the 5 of hearts are going to be ace, king, queen, jack, and I don't care about folding ace, king, queen, jack on that turn card because I'm so low in my range, like I almost can't be bluffed. I have ace high, no draw.
Right.
But in Adam's shoes, he has a straight and has now sort of a tough spot.
Yeah, he does.
Kate, by the way, bets 5,000 and to 9,300.
What do you think about that size right there, 53 into 93? It seems like a pretty normal size. Do you think maybe there's some merit to going smaller, or do you think it, or what do you think?
So the smaller you go, the more you're basically saying, I'm betting a lot of different types of hands, for example, for protection. I don't think that's really the case here. If you were to have like very vulnerable 2 pairs in your range, that makes more sense. But here, Kate will have flushes. Kate will have straights, and he will have some 2 pairs, but they also come along with like gutters or whatnot. So Kate doesn't really have a lot of those hands that need protection. So if he doesn't bet the protection hands, he needs to bet the value hands only, like the hands that are sort of invulnerable, like flushes. And if you have a flush here and you're planning to bet the turn, you're doing so to bet the river. You're building the pot. Otherwise, you can just use your flush as bluff catcher or the late river c-bet. So basically what Kate is saying is, I have a polarized range, I have a pretty strong flush here, and if that is true, then why is he betting 5,000 if he has such a great hand? He would probably wants to bet bigger. From an exploitive perspective, though, I think that this sizing is totally fine. Like Brandon or a lot of different players are going to overfold this turn without even thinking about it.
Right. So he does bet, and then Brandon calls, and then I think Brandon, what do you think about Brandon's call? Probably.
Brandon has an easy call.
Yeah, I think he has a pretty easy call here too. I think once he checks back the flop, once again, kind of talked about what his range looks like. I think he kind of has to call here. Last screenshot. The last screenshot's coming. Dude, you chose such fucking great photos here. So river comes down, the 10 of hearts, and the pot is what, 21K, and then Jungle Man bets 15.5K into it.
The pot is 19.3, and he bets 15.5.
19.3.
Yeah.
I'm fucking looking at here. What was that? How did I get to that point?
It was 9,300 on the flop,
and
and then 10,000 on top.
Okay, yeah, I'm reading chat. I'm like, Andrew, this guy Andrew Hart is talking about something in the chat. I'm trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking about. So
I think he's got a rule on this.
I think he's got a rule on this. Oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. Yeah. I know what he's talking about. So okay, so what do you think about Jungle Man's bet on the river?
I mean, Jungle is just trying to win this hand, I think. I'm super. I'm not a fan of this bet, and the reason is because, like, what is Brandon calling the turn with? I mean, he probably has a flush. Think about it. What are the possible hands that want to call this turn card? Oh,
the fuck is this advertisement?
Remove the ad.
Oh.
Here you go.
Go away, ad. It won't move.
You can click remove ads, or is that going to bring you to another ad?
No. Okay, here we go.
Bring us to the sponsor of the show. Okay. So think about it this way. Adams doesn't have a set. Why would he have a set? I mean, he would probably bet the flop with a set, and then set of fives. I mean, come on.
Fuck, bro.
You have to click on remove ads. Probably.
Let me try this.
So I trust nature may guide me.
Who's this lady? No, remove ads, send you somewhere else. What is this?
Porn.
What the fuck? Why there's black dude fucking a white girl on my screen right now? What is this? Dude, this is weird. There's a black dude fucking a white girl here.
Is that really true? Don't share that, otherwise YouTube will be very mad.
That's true, yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the hand.
Where's the hand?
I don't know. There's this black dude, so fucking this white chick here. Hold on. Okay, here we go. We got it.
Don't share that. Okay, here we go. Okay, what is Jungle trying to get to fold? Is Brandon holding a 2-pair? I mean, no. What hand would that be? Like ace is 5-3, I guess? Okay, very unlikely. Is Brandon holding a straight? Well, he is, but I mean, a lot of the 7-8 combos would potentially bet the flop. I would have bet the flop at least with 7-8. And then another problem is there are 4 hearts on the board, which will make it more likely that your opponent will call with a hand like a straight, in case you have a straight. But if your opponent has a flush, which is, I think, the most likely hand that Brandon can have here, there's no way he will fold. Not only are there 4 hearts on the board, but it's also Brandon Adams. We know he doesn't like folding rivers, right?
Right.
So
it's not like holding a river. That's true.
I mean, Jungle is just trying to help himself here, but I like the turn bet as an exploit. I dislike that river bet. From Brandon's perspective, I mean, what do you think about this situation? Would you call down here facing this action?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the decision, right? If you're Brandon here, you get bet 2 streets and 2. I don't think I'm going to call, but once again, I can understand why he does want to call, kind of going back to what I said before. And he's shown, I mean, you kind of saw us in a couple other spots. So he just doesn't want to get bluffed when it looks like he has that middling part of his range, and that's exactly what it looks like he has here. The 7-8, the jack high flush or queen high flush, maybe some 8 high flushes potentially, but yeah, just like that type of flush right there. So, I mean, this is like one of those games in PLO where I don't know if there's an easy explanation for it, or why you should call or why you should fold if you're Brandon and you're facing this action. It's sort of just like, I don't know. This is the $1 million question. If you knew how to do every time in this spot, you'd be winning a ton of money. But yeah, what do you think about it if you're Brandon and you face this bet here?
I would think a ton about my range, which looks. So there are two things to think about. Like, how does your range look like, and how high are up you in your range? And then secondly, Brandon did 3-bet, but he 3-bet actually small. If he were to 3-bet bigger, the main thing you want to think about is how often is your opponent folding versus a 3-bet. Because if your opponent is playing correct and he folds against a pretty reasonable amount of 3-bets, he will have a lot more double-suited hands than single-suited hands. A lot of single-suited hands, they are not really good as an out-of-position call versus 3-bet, which means your opponent will have more blockers, like a king, queen, jack 8, for example, with the king of hearts. That would be a hand that might be bluffing here. So I think Jungle is probably calling every 3-bet with almost anything here in this instance, specifically because he was min 3-bet. So therefore it's going to have more single-suited hands, which means more bluffs. I would probably fold as a default just because you have such a terrible hand in terms of blockers. But I mean, I wouldn't maneuver myself into this spot. It's a difficult one.
Right. Yeah. I think it's like there's really no just clear cut. He should call or he should fold here. I don't know. Maybe a live read, bro. I don't know. Maybe he thinks
live read, bro. Huh?
He thinks that Jungle Man is just playing overly aggressive against him specifically when he does show a little bit of weakness in his range, and Jungle Man's going to attack that at a higher frequency than maybe a normal player would have. So, which I mean, he's correct. So,
it's true. He did, by the way, call the river, and that was good. And Andrew Hart brings up a good example of a bad point, actually. And he says, hey, he's got to follow through once he starts with the turn. Either give up on the turn or don't bluff the river. Joey, what is wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to lose you a lot of money out there, man. I think you don't want to go into a plan like that. For the most part, if you do decide, especially on that specific board, on that specific run out there, you might want to take a stab. But when you do get called, I'll oftentimes, especially on a board like that, run out like that, when your opponent's likely to call you down, you don't want to be, okay, because I bet 1 street, I need to bet 2 streets. That's how you compound your mistakes. So when you compound a slightly fishy bet on the turn, this is how you lose a lot of money, by having that logic. So yeah, you do not want to use that logic.
It's also not correct, guys, just to make sure to understand that if you bluff the turn, you don't have to bluff the river. That's like, there's no correlation between that. I mean, there's some correlation. You want to have some bluffs from the turn, but you also need to have some give ups on the river. So hands you bet the turn with and then give up on the river. Otherwise, you're very exploitable. So again, I think there is this idea that if you have committed to a plan, you have to go through it. And you see some very fun players with that logic dusting off huge stacks and no limit sometimes, when they're like, I'm 3-betting this guy as a bluff with 4 deuce off, and then he gets 4-bet and he's like, no, I'm following through. I started this bluff. I'm going to 5-bet him all in or whatever. This is not really how poker works. You don't have to feel committed to a certain type of plan before you see the turn, before you see the river. You have to give up sometimes. That's just part of poker.
Amen. You have to give up when you're down 12 buy-ins in a session, guys. You need to give up sometimes. You don't want to keep playing and try to make it back, because sometimes you make it back, other times you end up down 30 buy-ins. So shout out to me. And you want to avoid spots like that. So
what happened with 12 buy-ins?
What's up?
What happened with 12 buy-ins? You played a session, or?
Well, I mean, this hasn't happened in a while, but yeah, I mean, back in the day, Fernando, I used to rapidly go through 12 buy-in swings very often, playing the great game and playing No Limit Hold'em too. So,
what is up more recently? Have you been playing this month a ton? I saw you've been playing a lot when I was in Vegas, or more on the chill side of things.
I think this month I played way too much in the beginning of the month and last month. I was like becoming obsessed with PLO again. And I just won a bunch. So I said, you know what, let me try to, because my idea was I'll play an hour a day. And as we know, I love PLO. That turned into let me play 8 hours a day. Let me play 10 hours a day. Let me not eat. Let me not do anything else. So, and the results came with that. So it's not like it was for nothing, but I was like, okay, I've been trying to focus on being more balanced and doing other things in my life. Let me try to do that. And this was unsuccessful. So yeah, I haven't been playing too much the past couple of weeks, but I think I've been thinking about maybe I should play more because it is something I enjoy the most. And while I like to be more balanced in my life, I don't necessarily know if I'm happiest more balanced in my life. And I'm more happiest when I'm playing a great game of Pot Limit Omaha and I'm doing absolutely nothing for fucking 8 hours except looking at the screen. So
yeah, that seems really hard to play 1 hour. You have to have a really good appointment after that 1 hour to be able to quit. Like you have to have such a huge plan. Because like 1 hour, as you say, can turn into a lot of hours very quickly. Yeah,
it's kind of been what's been going on lately with me, and just about finding that balance. You know, what is it I want to focus on? What is it I want to focus on doing? I feel like I'm doing 15 things, 20 things right now, and I need to eliminate a lot of those things for me to really excel at this one area or one thing. And I got my notebook right here. I'm trying to I'm going to write down everything that comes to my mind today that I know I need to do. Nice. And like now it's 20 things. And I'm like, after the pod, I'm like, what should I do? What's most important? You know, should I take the garbage out here? Should I unfollow people on Instagram? Should I post the podcast on iTunes? Should I talk to my people I want to talk to mainly? You know, and then it goes.
My planner.
See, yeah, exactly. 10x, like exactly.
I got the 10x planner, guys. 10x, man. But this is definitely a sign of success to write down what you want to do, collect your thoughts. And I know what some people think out there. They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But the thing is, when you literally have your whole day to plan out because you are not following an 9 to 5, you get a plan for that because, like Grant Cardone says, white space in your calendar is the devil. You know, if you don't know what to do, you probably end up doing something that's not worth doing. And I'm not talking about you have to work at all times, but if you don't plan doing something, you probably do something that is like not even worth doing, actually.
Yeah, man, it's so funny. I'm like, I have my notebook. You're like, I got a notebook here too. I'm like, oh, okay. Dude, my notebook is just like filled with just like little gems all around for notes and ideas, stuff like that. So my buddy Train in the chat says, read David Allen's Getting Things Done, highly GTO. You got a book rec for people out there, Fernando, right now, maybe?
Grant Cardone, Sell or Be Sold.
Is that the first one he came out with, or which book is that in the order of books he has?
He has like 6 books. This is probably the 3rd.
Okay. That's before like One Big Thing, or it's before the one about, I got it in my phone.
He has like a book that's called the 10X.
Yeah,
Rule.
that's it. Yeah, it's before that one, right?
I
think that's what it is.
I think it might be before that one, and then he, like in the audio version, he has like additional new added in content as well. I would probably recommend listening to it if you can on audio because he's reading it itself. He has a good voice. Yeah. He's motivating. I usually listen to it in the gym, and it's really sort of like driving my day, sort of like my way to get primed in the beginning of the day.
Yeah, I think I've been trying to think about that too lately, Fernando, which is I've been listening to podcasts. Most of them are sports related, but I don't necessarily think they're priming my mind to be active. So I've kind of been trying to figure out what could I listen to that will get me going when I got my morning routine. What can I get started with that'll start me off strong, whether that's music or whether that's a certain podcast or person. That's kind of the answer I've been trying to, kind of that like trigger point of, okay, this snaps me out of this fucking daze I'm in. This snaps me out of, and honestly, dude, I gotta be honest, man. I think I need to break my fucking phone, Fernando. I think I need to just break this fucking thing, not talk to anyone except like, but it's so important. But I swear to God, just like click on here, like message you earlier, and then I'm on the phone for 7 minutes, and then it just adds up, and I just I need to like break the thing sometimes, Poppy. It's such a terrible habit where I get lost on there. Such a bad habit.
I've been pretty long on the motivation grind, which means I've been listening to a lot of motivational stuff while working out. And I realized it's actually a waste of time for the most part because I already have motivation. If you even think about motivation, you probably have enough motivation. It's not about the motivation. It's about actually the action or the strategy. In terms of strategy, like how do you plan out your day? What is the next thing? And I like to talk to people. That's why I'm listening to audiobooks while I'm working out, that tell me I can do it. But not just tell me I can do it in a motivational way, but more what I should do. Like, hey, if you get back home, you don't have a plan what to do, then you're doing things wrong. Plan it out. Do this, do that. Just someone who in my life who enables me to become better, and get someone like that every day. And the easiest way to do that is just by listening to audiobooks that are strategizing about your business, your life, how to manage it, how to get better. And most people you will talk to, I mean, that's for almost everybody like that. They're not going to enable you to do things. They're going to disable you, because they're going to tell, they're going to tell you about their miserable life or their way of not being organized, or they're not going to believe in your dreams because they don't believe in their dreams. So it's like really, I don't really try to talk to too many people in a very serious way. I'd rather spend time with some people about it, and then those guys. But if I talk to those guys, they always tell me, "Oh man, this is awesome. Do more. Go all in. Like we can do this." And when I'm actually talking to people about coaching in general, I had this guy recently on in a call, basically where he was talking to me about he wants to become a professional poker player. He's from India. And he is working right now in his father's business. It's like 100-year-old business, a printing business. And I told him, like, look, man, you need someone in your life who can tell you you can do it and you should do it. And if you think about your environment, nobody in there will tell you, quit your job, you can do it, go all in, this is possible, follow your dream, work hard. Like nobody will tell you that. And that is what a person like myself sometimes is able to get into your mind every day. And if you can find someone like that, I think that's quite priceless.
Yes, if you can find somebody that gives you that would be good, guys. Correct, that's true. Unfortunately, man, that's harder said than done. So it's
for sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, the payoffs are definitely big. Some audiobook recommendations here as a side note. Let's see what I have here. Again, Seller Result, Grant Cardone, I like that one. Of course, I mean, I have like the Power One thing. Again, like I'm focusing more on strategy than motivation. Just think about that, guys. If someone tells you you should be pursuing your dreams, that's cool. But if someone tells you how you actually do it, that's way better.
I like that a lot. Man. Make sure you guys check out JNandez on Instagram. JNandez Poker, one of the best Instagrams in the entire world. I think I'm going to unfollow about like 30 people on Instagram. I know they're gonna be fucking mad too, because people get so mad. I only follow like 95 people on there. But
how can people unfollow? How can people figure out that you unfollow them?
I don't know if they can, but I'm sure they might. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I don't think it shows you. So. But when they do find out, they're gonna be pissed, man, because people get mad. They get so upset about that.
Why that? Too much ego, huh?
Yeah, but I think my time and where I'm spending my time is like Instagram, Twitter. I think Instagram, I'm missing out on people I care about and what they're doing and commenting on their stuff and sort of like supporting it. And I think it's just getting lost in the shuffle with people. So I think I need to click that unfollow from my life and be able to actually just see the people I want to see the most. And that's
I mean, you told me like in our last podcast that you think about sharing things that you then don't share for one or the other reason. Maybe that sign of resistance means that you should do it.
I think so. I agree. I'm just writing a couple things down here. Yeah, whenever you sense resistance, you should do it. So, but let's wrap this up. We've been doing this long enough, man. And why don't we make a plan to come back next Saturday, and do a pod maybe a little bit earlier in the day. That way, it's a little bit earlier, more GTO YouTube time, of course. And so obviously you're putting out a lot of YouTube content over on YouTube. Make sure you guys go check it out, subscribe, watch the videos on there. PLO Professor. You got the bankroll challenge, some vlogs on there. It's a mixture of different content. It's very great stuff. Check it out. You will not be disappointed. Of course, Instagram, JNandez is hard on the Instagram street. The university, PLO University, the link below. But remember, there's going to be a price decrease next Monday. So check it out. You get bonus content from me no matter when you sign up. I might even put some extra videos out there for people who have already signed up that I sent the videos to. Made 10 videos for them. Maybe I'll make 10 more. We'll kind of see what happens here. And yeah, man, I appreciate all the comments, all the questions. My girl Kelly Walker out there. Someone said, what I feel, is 300, 600 too high for you? Or do you think I'd be minus EV in this specific lineup? I do not think I would be minus EV in this specific lineup if I was playing a ton of PLO. Is 300, 600 too high for me? Yes, that's fucking high. I've been playing, the highest I've been playing is 10, 20, and 250 recently. Even if I sold a large majority of my action, so I was still effectively playing that, I would still be a little bit scared because I have never played 300, 600. I played some 200, 400, 100, 200, but that was when I was playing every day, all day long. All I was thinking about was PLO. And so, yeah, even if it wasn't my money, I'd still feel a little bit. But, of course, I would play it. Why not? Yes. I'm sure Fernando would play too, and he would feel much more comfortable and confident in his game.
I played some big PLO games where I don't have the majority of my action. And I mean, if you have the right people that are taking action, who believe in you and know that you are a good player and have an edge at the table, I don't really have nervous feelings about it because I know what I want to do. I have my reasons, and money is just a number. I mean, sometimes it is, you know, a little bit nerve-wracking, but for the most part, it isn't.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, yeah, playing 300, 600 on there, you know what I mean? Everything's dissected. I mean, there's a lot of things.
Everyone is different, for sure.
Everyone will talk about it. Oh my God, fucking what an idiot. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's something that would be, yeah, would be a little bit of something for sure. So, but there might be something I'll be playing on coming up here pretty soon. Maybe a live at the Bike PLO week that if Fernando's out here at that time. We talked the other day. He's going to be out here in Vegas, I think a couple times, twice. So we'll be getting together. We'll probably be doing some stuff, and it'll be fun, man. We'll come up with some cool ideas too together for Pot Limit Omaha. So, any last parting words, Poppy?
Check out next week on Monday. I'll be having a podcast on Doug Polk's YouTube channel, of course, Doug Polk Poker. We have a big announcement along the PLO footage, PLO courses on Upswing Poker. Definitely check it out if you're interested in that. And other than that, you know, follow me on YouTube, JNandez Poker. I'll put out different types of content, mainly around poker and PLO, of course. And on Instagram, if you want to have a little bit more of a personal touch in terms of what I do in my life every day, check out.
I love that you're doing Instagram now. I remember during the summer, I was like, dude, you got to do and this is kind of what Doug told me a long time ago. And then I told you this summer, I was like, dude, you got to get an Instagram, bro. You're like, Instagram, is that a place I'm like, dude, you got to get an Instagram. You got to get an Instagram. And you're like, okay, I'll get it. Now you're on Instagram, and now you love Instagram, right? I'm telling you, it's cool. It's fun.
Content creation is pretty smooth on there. You know, you can just like have a 10-second clip, and it's cool. You know, it's cool.
Exactly. It's a little different than YouTube. And you know, YouTube, you're making whole videos there. You're just like, you put some up there. You're doing something like that. So it's yeah, I enjoy it a lot. So actually, I got an idea. I'm gonna do something today. I got an idea for something to do on Instagram with your Instagram on mine. So, but yeah, guys, that's it. That's all we got. Yeah, I said everything I need to say. Back Monday, Stefan Sattheimer, Goose Score, Poker Master, Purple Jacket winner himself. Make sure you guys like the video if you like it. If you hate it, dislike it, please. Leave a comment below. Let us know on Twitter what you thought. I'll respond to every comment. If you ask me a question, I will try to respond to everything. And that's all I got. Jeremy Krantz, Andrew Hart, Grimstar, Neil Scotland. Peace out, guys. Adios, and see you soon.